After slaying the two supreme god kings, Ming Dong stood on the moon's view peak. In front of all the god kings, he increased the bounty before leaving with the 5 divine generals and the 2 heads. God artifacts were very valuable, to the point where they were worth cities, or even to the point where there was basically no supply and only demand. However, in Ming Dong's eyes, avenging Jian Chen was more important than anything else. He would pay any price to find the other people as quickly as possible. Quite a few people among the 8 god kings who had worked against Jian Chen had come to watch the battle at the moon's view peak. However, they were all very prudent and disguised themselves well, obscuring their presences and hiding amongst the crowd. No one managed to recognize them. The god kings gathered around Moon's View Peak dispersed very quickly, and the place recovered its previous peace. Only the puddles of blood from god kings silently explained the ferocity that had happened earlier. After that, Ming Dong's name rang through the Neptunian divine palace, allowing many god kings to bear in mind that a supreme prodigy who was not on the god king's throne but possessed strength equivalent to those on the god king's throne had appeared in the Neptunian divine palace. As Ming Dong's name spread, more and more people bore his astronomical bounties in mind. They began to take it seriously. After all, although the bounties had caused quite a disturbance before, there were not a lot of people who took it seriously despite almost everyone knowing about it. They took it as a joke. But now, as Ming Dong had made his name in the battle, it changed. He had used his strength to garner admiration. After all, every single expert on the God King's throne was a proud existence of great status, viewing their own fame with greater importance than anything else. People like that would naturally tell the truth and not tarnish their own names. For a time, more and more people began to search for the 6 other supreme God Kings who attacked Jian Chen together. The God Kings who knew Ming Dong was related to the heavenly palace of Bisheng even treated it as top priority in an attempt to befriend Ming Dong through this so that they could establish a connection with the heavenly palace of Bisheng. In the world of boundless volcanoes on the 8th floor, Ming Dong returned there with the heads of the 2 supreme God Kings. He hovered several dozen meters in the air as he stared at the churning lava below sternly. He seemed dejected as he grieved silently. Jian Chen, I've already fought 2 of the 8 supreme God Kings. Can you see it? I've brought their heads as an offering to your soul. I'll use their blood and souls as a sacrifice to your soul in the afterlife, Ming Dong murmured softly. His heart was heavy as he was in deep sorrow. Afterwards, he gently let go of the 2 heads, allowing them to just fall out of the sky. No. Don't. Spare me, spare me. My clan will definitely be grateful. If you really dare to kill me, my master will never let you go. It won't just be you. It'll be the organization behind you as well. All of them will bear the rage of my master. My master is a grand prime, so you better consider it carefully. If you let me go right now, I can forgive you for what you did before. The souls of the 2 supreme God Kings were still there. They were just sealed up in the heads, which prevented them from escaping. As they saw the lava grow closer and closer, they became utterly flustered. They roared out furiously and even directly threatened Ming Dong. Ming Dong's face did not change, and even the 5 divine generals maintained the same expression. Even if grand primes were mentioned, they still did not change their minds. No. Don't. I'm the disciple of an ancestral empire of the Shen Empire of the Hinyu Plain, Guli. I will ask my master to complete the wish of whoever saves me. One of the supreme God King emitted a mental pulse that spread far and wide. At this moment before death, he had completely forgotten about his pride. He tried everything he could to survive. There were still many God Kings collecting fire divine crystals on the 8th floor. When they heard Guli, they were all startled, and they seemed interested. They were familiar with the Shen Empire. It was one of the 2 everlasting empires of the Hinyu Plain. They stood at the peak of the plain, making them extremely powerful. The ancestral emperors of everlasting empires were all grand primes. They were existences who stood at the apex, making them so great that they could look down on all living things. They were absolute. If they could get someone like that to complete a wish, it would definitely be a fortune enough to change their fates. It was something they could only wish for. For a moment, many god kings wavered on the 8th floor. They all gathered together, but when they saw the cold Ming Dong and the 5 divine generals who stood like gods of slaughter, they all hesitated. They did not dare to intervene. They had not lost their rationality. They all thought of the same question. This person was even bold enough to kill the disciple of a grand prime fearlessly, so how could his background be weak? What are you all staring for? Do something. Gu Li panicked. He called out loudly, but no one truly intervened. In the end, Gu Li's head fell into the lava while his soul was sealed in there. His face was filled with regret as the lava below swallowed him up. This sight shocked all of the surrounding god kings. That was the disciple of an ancestral emperor of the Shenen Empire, yet he had just died like that. The Shenen Empire was located on the Hinyu Plain, which was close to the Neptunian Divine Palace. Was the young man not afraid that the ancestral emperor would be waiting for him outside the Neptunian Dive Palace? However, the god kings soon realized something, and their faces changed, immediately leaving the area as quickly as possible. They vanished in the blink of an eye. They had not gone to the moon's view peak, so they naturally did not know about what happened there. They were afraid that Ming Dong would want to silence them through slaughter. Ming Dong ignored the god kings. His gaze remained fixed on the lava below him. His eyes were downcast while he was depressed. He seemed like he had lost his soul. He remained there for an entire hour and only left with the 5 divine generals after confirming that the 2 heads had been burnt to a crisp. He went off to find the other 6 people. Currently, at the bottom of the lava, where people believed it was impossible to survive, a man in golden silk mail endured the terrifying heat as he held onto a net woven from golden threads. He dragged a huge pile of fire divine crystals in the net as he flew towards a small, golden tower nearby. However, just when he was about to enter the tower, he suddenly froze. He looked up and saw 2 half-melted heads gradually sink down. The person produced an interjection of surprise. He grabbed the 2 heads with a single movement, and without any hesitation, he entered the tower in a flash. Who could this be? It was naturally Chen, who everyone believed to be dead. There was already a small mountain of fire divine crystals in the Inata Tower. They were innumerable, casually thrown there like useless rocks. After entering the Inata Tower, Chen tossed the fire divine crystals he had just collected over there casually, causing the pile to slightly grow in size once again. Then he looked at the 2 heads. These 2 heads seem somewhat familiar. It's as if I've seen them before. Chen studied the heads. Although the heads were basically unrecognizable now, they still possessed a familiar presence. I've definitely seen these 2 people when they were still alive, but the impression they gave me was not particularly deep. Coupled with the fact that most of these heads have been melted away by the lava, I can't even tell whether they were male or female when they were still alive, let alone recognize them. Chen frowned as he held the 2 heads. The souls in the 2 heads had already been dispersed, and lava had flooded the heads through every cavity as well. Lava constantly dripped from them right now, covering Chen's hand. A while later, Chen's eyes suddenly narrowed. He finally remembered who they were. Due to the fact that a powerful screen of light condensed from laws protected all 8 supreme god kings who fought against him, Chen had not personally seen their appearances. However, he clearly remembered their presences when he fought them. The residual presences from the 2 heads in his hands completely matched 2 of them. I never thought 2 would have already died, and to think that I wanted to take revenge personally. It looks like they have died to the hands of someone else in the end. Chen sighed gently as his expression became rather mixed. With a flash, Kaya suddenly appeared before Chen. She stared at the 2 heads that had been melted beyond recognition and said, 2 supreme god kings have died all of a sudden. It looks like the fights in the Neptunian Divine Palace are becoming more and more intense, where even god kings from the god king's throne are gradually losing their advantage. Chen nodded in agreement. The Neptunian Divine Palace this time is different from the past. The appearance of the Neptunian moon means that something big will happen in the Neptunian Divine Palace. It's impossible to keep this matter a secret, so it has probably spread to the outside world already. If I've guessed correctly, the large clans and organizations in the Saints' world should have sent many god kings into the Neptunian divine palace. That should include a few extremely powerful god kings. Kaya became extremely stern and said, if the Neptunian divine palace really has gained even more experts, it'll be even worse for us. Unless we remain beneath the lava for the entire time, we'll probably become everyone's target as soon as we show ourselves with how special Xiao Man is. Chen, what do you plan on doing next? Chen thought for a while and responded, there's still some time before the Neptunian divine palace closes. Before that, I want to collect some more fire divine crystals before investigating the matter with Xiao Man. I'll decide what we should do after all that. Time passed silently. In the blink of an eye, it had already been a few days since Ming Dong killed the two supreme god kings. During that time, Ming Dong had always been investigating the whereabouts of the 6 other people. His astronomical bounty had already spread across the entire Neptunian divine palace. The god artifacts turned countless people green with greed. Although Ming Dong's reckless exhibition of his wealth had motivated many god kings in the Neptunian divine palace to find where the 6 of supreme god kings were, it had also drawn over a few people who wanted to kill him and take his treasures. As a result, Ming Dong encountered ambushes, traps, assassins, and so on. They all wanted to kill him and take his things. However, any person who eyed Ming Dong's items did not return. Not only did they fail to take anything from Ming Dong, but it even consolidated Ming Dong's name instead, making him even more renowned in the Neptunian divine palace. In the past few days, Ming Dong had learned about the remaining 6 people completely, understanding their backgrounds. However, due to the fact that the 6 of them had witnessed Ming Dong's strength during the fight at Moon's View Peak, Ming Dong failed to find their traces in all these days. These 6 people sure are hidden well. It won't work if we continue like this, but I do know their identities now, so for them to escape from me is basically impossible. Ming Dong ordered the 5 divine generals coldly with a sunken face as he brimmed with killing intent, watch over me. I want to cast Fate Sight to find them. The expressions of the 5 divine generals changed when they heard that. One of them immediately replied, you must not, Ninth Majesty. Fate Sight is a forbidden technique. You can't use it without the corresponding strength, or you'll be injured by the power of the universe. It'll be very difficult to recover from. The price is just too great. Fate Sight was created by Ming Dong's master. Once the technique was cast, the caster could peer into the heavenly secrets and the mysteries of the universe. The caster could peer into his personal samsaric journey, his past, present, and future lives, and the fates of all living organisms. It was extremely wondrous and profound. Ming Dong was not powerful enough to peer into the heavenly secrets or the mysteries of the universe, and he would struggle to see his personal samsaric journey or the fates of all living organisms. However, with the information he possessed, it would not be too difficult for him to use the technique to see the lines of fate, the threads of karma, and find traces of the people he was looking for. As long as I can avenge my brother, so what if I am injured by the power of the universe? Ming Dong spoke firmly, possessing a sense of irrefutable forcefulness. He did what he said. Without hesitating at all, he began casting Fate Sight. At the same time, the news that the artifact spirit of the Neptunian divine palace had awakened and that the divine hall would soon gain a new owner spread through the Neptunian divine palace completely, creating a huge disturbance. For a time, cultivators from various places and of varying cultivation levels moved about everywhere in the Neptunian divine palace. They scoured every corner in search of the artifact spirit. In the eyes of regular god kings, the 12th floor of the Neptunian divine palace was no longer a forbidden place that they could not set foot in. They surged onto the 12th floor, searching every inch of the land there eagerly with burning desire. They refused to miss any area at all. The Neptunian divine palace by itself was a high-quality god artifact, and there was an unimaginable amount of resources within it. All of them understood that as long as they were recognized by the artifact spirit and became the master of this place, all of that would belong to them. However, even when they basically flipped the entire Neptunian divine palace upside down, they did not find any traces of the artifact spirit at all. Currently, a slender woman in a white dress sat on a boulder. A veil covered her face. Although her appearance was obscured, it was possible to determine that she was definitely a beauty from her pretty eyes that were limpid like autumn water. Over a dozen god kings guarded her side with great loyalty as they constantly paid attention to the surroundings. As long as the artifact spirit of the Neptunian divine palace remains hidden, finding it is almost impossible. Your Highness, should we keep searching? A guard asked politely. The woman on the boulder sank into her thoughts and said, I finally understand why that girl with a cultivation that was nothing special received the protection of the world now. If I've guessed correctly, that girl has probably been chosen by the artifact spirit. The artifact spirit still hasn't come out, maybe because it's waiting for that girl to appear. What? That girl is the person chosen by the artifact spirit? Doesn't that mean, it said that little girl is only at the mortal realm? Your Highness, this isn't likely at all. The guards beside her all voiced their surprise. Everyone found it difficult to believe. I find this difficult to believe as well, but if you look throughout history, who has received the protection of the Neptunian divine palace out of the countless cultivators who have entered here? No one has. Across the countless years, this has never happened before, the woman said softly. She looked at the surroundings with mixed feelings, yet, this unbelievable matter has just happened right now, and it happened when the artifact spirit awakened. What does this mean? It means that the reason why the girl is protected by the world of the Neptunian divine palace is because of the secret assistance of the artifact spirit. As a result, I'm certain that the little girl has been chosen by the artifact spirit. With that, the guards around the woman looked at one another. They thought the princess' analysis was very logical, but they also felt very confused about it. They did not understand why the artifact spirit of the Neptunian divine palace would choose a girl with such weak cultivation. But the girl has already fallen into the lava, and she hasn't reappeared since. A guard brought up this carefully. The princess' gaze became deep. She said, don't forget. The girl is protected by the world, so as long as a power that exceeds the Neptunian divine palace, a high-quality god artifact, does not appear here, she'll be fine. As a result, the lava may be terrifying, but it still can't harm the girl at all. Let's go to the 8th floor and see whether we can find the girl. Do you still think you can leave, Princess Yun Xiaoyan of the Thousand Lotus Empire? At this moment, a frigid voice rang out from nearby. There was chilling killing intent in the voice, causing the temperature of the surroundings to plummet suddenly. Who? The expression of Yun Xiaoyan of the Thousand Lotus Empire changed, and she suddenly turned around. Her face hidden under the veil became extremely stern. With her strength, she had actually failed to sense the person's approach at all. 1,000 meters away, the space there twisted and 6 figures silently appeared in the empty air. They all kept themselves hidden through secret techniques, having approached this place silently, where even the supreme god king Yun Xiaoyan failed to sense anything. Yun Xiaoyan's eyes suddenly narrowed when she saw how it was. However, her face did not change as she said, Young Master Ming, may I ask what you mean by what you said before? These 6 people were Ming Dong and the 5 divine generals. However, Ming Dong's face seemed extremely pale right now. He seemed rather frail, as if he had been injured. He had paid a huge price to cast Fate Sight, having been injured by the power of the universe. He would not be able to recover in a short amount of time even after ingesting god-tier healing pills. Yun Xiaoyan, you should know why I'm here. Do you plan on denying the fact that you took part in attacking Jian Chen? Ming Dong hovered in the air as he said coldly and emotionlessly. A tremendous presence flooded out from him. Yun Xiaoyan giggled. She ripped off her veil, revealing beauty that was enough to enchant everything. She was truly as beautiful as a goddess. Young Master Ming sure is skilled. I've already hidden so well, where even my guards have disguised themselves. I thought I could fool all the people in the Neptunian Divine Palace, but I never thought I still won't be able to escape from young Master Ming's eyes. Yun Xiaoyan giggled as her limpid eyes stared right at Ming Dong. No matter how well you've hidden, no matter what you use, everyone who has taken part in the fight against Jian Chen will die in the end. Even if you leave the Neptunian Divine Palace, I, Ming Dong, will hunt you down. I won't let any of you go, Ming Dong said coldly. His expression did not change at all. Young Master Ming, although I did take part in the encirclement against Chen, I didn't use my full strength. Is young Master Ming really so cold-hearted where he doesn't even know how to go soft on women, and that he wants to claim my life under his sword? Yun Xiaoyan said softly. She seemed like she had been wronged and seemed pitiful. Her expression coupled with her great beauty truly posed as an extremely great force of temptation. In the entire world, probably almost no men would be vicious enough to lay their hands on her firmly and destroy such a beauty. Die. Ming Dong's face was cold as he did not waver at all. With a tremor of his sword, he charged towards Yun Xiaoyan with killing intent and the power of the laws of the sword. Protect Her Highness. The guards around Yun Xiaoyan called out, and they all charged towards Ming Dong fearlessly. However, they were still regular god kings after all, even though there were late god kings among them. The difference compared to experts on the god king's throne was just too great. Ming Dong's eyes were cold. As he surged with killing intent, the power of the laws of destruction formed into an angered dragon from his sword, engulfing 3 god kings instantly. The 3 god kings were unable to resist at all, and they were all shredded to pieces by the terrifying power of destruction in a single instance. Stay back. Yun Xiaoyan called out with an ugly expression. She struck out with her full strength. The sword in her hand emitted a huge stream of light with the power of the laws of the sword as she became locked in an intense battle against Ming Dong. Boom! Their clash resulted in a deafening sound. The laws of destruction and the sword interwove as they entered an intense struggle in the air. Terrifying energy turned into storms that wreaked havoc in the surroundings. The battle was truly devastating. You sure are vicious, Yun Xiaoyan retreated in the air. She was no longer in the same shape as before. She was disheveled and in a horrible condition while her snow-white dress had become splattered with blood. Ming Dong was very powerful. Not only had he grasped various powerful battle skills and secret techniques, but he was also able to use the laws of destruction to a degree of mastery. In that short clash, Yun Xiaoyan had already lost the upper hand against Ming Dong. She was not his opponent at all. Heavens collapse. Suddenly, Ming Dong shouted out, and the laws of destruction condensed on his hand madly. It turned into a huge palm that shrouded the moon as he swung it towards Yun Xiaoyan mercilessly. Its might was terrifying enough to cause even the world to pale. A god-tier battle skill. You actually know more than one god-tier battle skill. Yun Xiaoyan's face changed drastically as she showed disbelief. It was virtually impossible for god kings to grasp god-tier battle skills, yet Ming Dong actually knew too. This was just far too astounding. Chapter 2102, Experts United, 1. As she said that, an extremely powerful pulse of energy radiated from Yun Xiaoyan. She was stern as she formed a seal with one hand before suddenly pointing at the sky. As she extended her finger, a powerful strand of sword chi immediately shot out, plunging towards the sky with a demonic, blood-like red light. After sending out the blood-red sword chi, a smear of paleness appeared on Yun Xiaoyan's face. The sword chi she had just used was an extremely powerful secret technique. It was cast through burning her essence blood, and she would have to pay quite a great price every time she used it. As a result, the sword chi possessed enough power to barely match god-tier battle skills. Ming Dong could not help but sneer disdainfully when he faced this attack. Suddenly, he clenched his hand, and the huge palm created from his god-tier battle skill closed up as well, clutching Yun Xiaoyan's blood-red sword chi and crushing it to pieces. Spurt. Immediately, Yun Xiaoyan felt like her heart had been crushed to pieces. Blood spurted out from her mouth, and her pale face became even paler. She had burned her essence blood to create the blood-red sword chi through a secret technique. Although it did possess the power to match up to god-tier battle skills to a certain degree, it was only barely. There was naturally a huge gap that still could not be covered when compared to Ming Dong's true god-tier battle skill. After crushing Yun Xiaoyan's sword chi, the huge hand continued onwards without slowing down at all. It engulfed Yun Xiaoyan with a tremendous, destructive force, slamming down onto the ground. It produced a huge rumble, making the earth shake. The palm strike was so powerful that it formed a deep imprint in the ground. Moreover, this was the damage it had caused inside the Neptunian Divine Palace, a high-quality god artifact. If it was outside, there was no doubt that Ming Dong's palm strike would have been able to destroy a smaller planet effortlessly. Anything from the Saints' world would be on a completely different scale when compared to the Tianyuan continent. The strike was even able to shatter a smaller planet in the Saints' world, so its power was more than evident. Yun Xiaoyan was still alive. She was disheveled and in horrible shape, making her seem just like a beggar. Her beautiful face was terrifyingly pale as well. She stood up with much difficulty while her white dress had disintegrated long ago. A supreme quality saint artifact covered in cracks that shone with a dull glow covered her body. It was the only thing keeping her from becoming nude. Young Master Ming, you really are vicious. You have no idea how to appreciate women. Are you determined to kill me here today? Yun Xiaoyan stared at Ming Dong deeply, who hovered in the sky. He was cold like a merciless god of slaughter. She appeared as though she wanted to memorize his face firmly. That's right, Ming Dong said coldly. He wielded his sword as he strode towards Yun Xiaoyan. Ha ha ha, since young Master Ming is unwilling to let me go, I'll do as you wish. However, I won't be dying to your hands, Yun Xiaoyan giggled. In the end, she glanced at Ming Dong deeply with mixed feelings before pointing at her forehead, shattering her soul herself. The princess of the Thousand Lotus Empire, a supreme beauty of great talent ranked on the God King's throne, died just like this. Your Highness. Yun Xiaoyan's suicide filled her guards with grief. Ming Dong's stride paused slightly. He looked at the dead Yun Xiaoyan with quite some surprise as he remained silent. A while later, Ming Dong arrived before Yun Xiaoyan's corpse slowly. He ignored the intense objection from the guards and squatted down beside her. After examining the corpse carefully and confirming that she was dead, he stood up and said to Yun Xiaoyan's guards, "Your princess is an admirable person. She's the first woman that I must reappraise and hold in a new light, so I won't be taking her head. You can leave with her corpse." Throwing that down, Ming Dong left with the 5 divine generals. Now, 3 of the 8 god kings who had hunted down Chen were dead. However, Ming Dong had already gained the precise location of the 5 other people as well through his fate sight. While Ming Dong was hellbent on avenging Chen, a new storm brewed in the Neptunian Divine Palace. Xiao Man, who had received the protection of the world and also fallen into the lava in Chen's Anata Tower, had become everyone's center of attention. Yun Xiaoyan was not the only person who guessed that it was extremely likely for Xiao Man to be the person chosen by the artifact spirit. Basically everyone believed that Xiao Man was connected to some unknown secret of the Neptunian Divine Palace after they learnt she was protected by the structure. Some people had even determined that Xiao Man might have caused the changes to the Neptunian Divine Palace. Several million years ago, there was a supreme expert who predicted that something big would happen to the Neptunian Divine Palace when the Neptunian moon appeared, but there hasn't been a single expert that has managed to tell whether this change will be good or bad. It has been a mystery the entire time. But looking at it now, this matter is likely to be the awakening of the artifact spirit and that the Neptunian Divine Palace is about to gain a new master. This definitely isn't as simple as it seems on the surface. If it's just the selection of a new master, it's not really something big. In the future, we must be careful. Anything that can be described as big by a supreme expert means it's something on a different level. Many god kings discussed with one another. A few god kings thought about the rumor that had existed from over 3 million years ago. Suddenly, they all realized that their visit to the Neptunian Divine Palace would not be as simple as they thought it would be. They all became cautious. Have you heard that Ming Dong, who set up the astronomical bounty, has already personally slain 4 supreme god kings? After the battle at the Moon's View Peak, Princess Yun Xiaoyan of the Thousand Lotus Empire and the treasured daughter of the Kangman clan, Kangmang Fian, had been killed as well, where even their souls were wiped out. Before long, another piece of shocking news garnered everyone's attention. Ming Dong is insane. He even dares to kill the treasured daughter of the Kangmang clan. The Kangmang clan was once a peak clan renowned throughout the Saints' world, where they were no weaker than the Daoist sect of Neptunia in the past. Although they've already declined, their heritage is still very rich. They aren't an existence that can just be provoked without proper thought. What do you think Ming Dong's origins are? He's willing to offend so many peak organizations just to avenge a dead person. Fortunately, I didn't take part in the attack against Chen, or I'd be a corpse now. Many god kings immediately became interested when Ming Dong was mentioned, and they joined in on the intense discussion. Chapter 2103, Experts United, 2. In a mountain range where people rarely set foot in on the 9th floor, an old man sat within a gloomy cave while keeping his presence concealed. It was possible to tell with a single glance that the old man was hiding. He was extremely cautious. Not only did he keep himself concealed at all times, but he even cast down various concealing formations in the obscure cave. All the formations were of impressive grades, where even if god kings passed by, they would fail to discover what was hidden there. Who is Ming Dong? He has killed 4 supreme god kings consecutively. Both Yun Xiaoyan of the Thousand Lotus Empire and Kangmang Fian of the Kangmang clan have passed away, the old man in the concealed cave murmured softly with a frown. The old man was a supreme god king on the god king's throne, Tsang. In the past few days, Tsang had spent his time hidden here. He did all he could to avoid conflict with Ming Dong. He had made this decision in the past not because he was afraid of Ming Dong, but because he did not want to drag his young master, Mo Cheng, into the matter. This was because he had come into the Neptunian Divine Palace under his master's orders to protect Mo Cheng. Although he had never ventured out in the past few days, he was extremely well informed. He basically knew everything major that had happened in the Neptunian Divine Palace, so he naturally knew about what Ming Dong had been doing. Right from the start, Tsang had been stunned when Ming Dong killed the 2 supreme god kings from the Moon's View Peak. Afterwards, as several more supreme god kings died to Ming Dong's hands one after another, only then did he treat him with caution. It had even risen to the point where he felt angst. It looks like I can't remain in the Neptunian Divine Palace. For the sake of the young master's safety, I might have to leave the Neptunian Divine Palace early with the young master. However, at this moment, Tsang Ying's eyes suddenly narrowed. Suddenly, he raised his hand, and an azure scale seemed to appear. It flickered with light. A great sense of danger was clearly transmitted to Tsang Ying's mind from the scale. Oh no! Tsang Ying's face changed. Without any hesitation, he vanished from the gloomy cave with a slight movement. When he reappeared, he had already arrived outside of the cave. He quickly warned Mo Cheng, who was cultivating in seclusion in another cave. Afterwards, he began to flicker with azure light as he shot off into the distance with unbelievable speed. At the same time, the calm space above the mountains suddenly distorted. Ming Dong and the 5 divine generals appeared in the empty air silently. I never thought he would actually be able to sense our arrival, but since I've found you, do you still think you can escape? Chase him. Ming Dong said emotionlessly as he glared at the fleeing Tsang Ying. He and the 5 divine generals immediately pursued Tsang Ying. In terms of strength, Tsang Ying ranked towards the bottom end of the God King's throne, but in terms of speed, he could rank towards the top. Tsang Ying flickered with azure light. At that moment, he seemed to have become an azure peng, moving through the 9th floor with terrifying speed. He crossed tens of thousands of kilometers in a single instance, where he moved even faster than meteorites. It was truly terrifying. When he flew over some god kings, some of them even failed to notice him. TL note, it's the same Peng as the Peng clan and Sangxiong from back on the Tian Yuan continent. The Peng is a Chinese mythological beast that you can read more about here, https://en. Wikipedia. org/wiki/peng_, mythology. Ming Dong pursued Tsang Ying with his 5 divine generals. They all used secret techniques, pushing their speed to the maximum. The laws of wind even revolved around Ming Dong, seemingly transforming him into a wisp of wind as he advanced extremely quickly. However, they were only able to tail Tsang Ying from afar. They struggled to close the distance. That is the Azure Peng's movement technique. Ninth Majesty, the Azure Peng is a renowned peak expert in the Saints' world. He's known for his speed. Since this person knows the Azure Peng's movement technique, it'll be very difficult for us to catch up to him, a divine general said from behind Ming Dong. Really now? Then let me see just how long he can maintain that speed, Ming Dong sneered. He used a secret technique. As his hands formed seals, a dazzling, golden light suddenly appeared, condensing into the shape of a tower. As soon as the tower appeared, it gave off a tremendous presence. The supreme presence of the world seemed to circulate about the tower. Even though it was very hazy and blurry, it was enough to give people the impression that it could suppress the laws of the world. If Chen was present, he would definitely be able to tell that the tower Ming Dong's secret technique conjured was mostly similar to the Anata Tower with a single glance. The reason why it was not completely the same was that the Anata Tower was just too damaged, making it impossible to make a detailed comparison. Moreover, the presences of the two towers completely differed. The Anata Tower in Chen's hands seemed extremely ordinary. Apart from the fact that it was covered with slashes, there were no unique abnormalities about it. However, the tower Ming Dong condensed possessed a presence enough for the world to react to it. It shone with blinding light, making it an existence that no one could stare at directly. According to my 8th senior, this technique was created by my first senior sister when she saw the famed treasure of my master. I struggle to even use 1/10,000th of the technique's power with my current cultivation and against opponents. It's nowhere close to the other battle skills I know. However, this technique can punch through space and bypass any distances present. It just happens to be a perfect time to use it, Ming Dong said softly before pointing towards Tsang from afar. After extending a finger, the figure of the Anata Tower that had been conjured before him instantly vanished. It moved through space and overcame the limits created by distance, appearing behind Tsang in a single instance. Tsang could obviously sense the danger behind him, which made his expression change drastically. However, Ming Dong's secret technique was created with reference to the Anata Tower, so even though its power was extremely limited in Ming Dong's hands, it still possessed some of the essence of the Anata Tower, preventing Tsang from dodging it. Bang! With a heavy thud, the figure of the tower struck Tsang back, forcing him to vomit a mouthful of blood. He was heavily injured, and he slowed down. Tsang heart sank. He knew that he would struggle to maintain his advantage while being hunted down by the people behind him, so determination immediately flooded his face as he quickly flew towards the 8th floor. Many god kings currently gathered on the 8th floor of the Neptunian Divine Palace. There were so many of them that it ranged over 10,000. There were even many supreme god kings around. Moreover, the number constantly increased because god kings would basically come down from the 9th floor or come up from the 7th floor at all times. As a result, over 80% of all the cultivators in the Neptunian Divine Palace had gathered on the 8th floor. All of them stood around where Chen had fallen into the lava. Their eyes would shine brightly from time to time, almost to the point where they emitted visible streaks of light as they observed the churning lava below. At other times, they would close their eyes and carefully sense for something. It was like they were searching for something. Since the girl is protected by the power of the Neptunian Divine Palace, she must still be alive. Everyone, let's find a way to see if we can dive into the lava and search in there. That's right. The girl must be trapped in the lava. She won't be able to come up with her strength at the mere mortal realm. She needs our help. Although the lava is extremely terrifying, we have defensive god artifacts. If we all work together and push the might of the god artifacts to the limit, I think we can remain in the lava for a while. The little girl is tied to many important matters. We have to find her no matter what. We can't just lose her. Many powerful supreme god kings gathered in groups on the 8th floor. They had already banded together, and they were currently discussing with one another, preparing to dive into the lava. Chapter 2104, Colossal Eruptions. Among all these groups of god kings, there were over a dozen that were the most powerful. Many powerful late god kings would be turned away immediately when they wanted to join these groups, believed to have no right to join. The group led by Jian was the most powerful group out of all of them. Not only were there various supreme god kings from the god king's throne gathered there, but there were even many people with god artifacts. Currently, 2 people sat in the air as they rested with their eyes closed in the group led by Jian. They seemed to be ignoring everything going on around them. The 2 of them were Gongzheng and Bai Yi, who had attacked Chen together. Now, Gongzheng and Bai Yi had removed their disguises, exposing themselves before everyone. They did not care about getting recognized and subsequently being reported to Ming Dong for a great reward. Gongzheng, Bai Yi, how are your wounds? A burly middle-aged man walked over as he glanced past Gongzheng and Bai Yi. The middle-aged man was Jian. Perhaps there were not a lot of people who would recognize Jian from his appearance in the Neptunian Divine Palace, but over 90% of all the people in there would be familiar with his name. This was because Jian was an extremely powerful supreme god king on the god king's throne. He ranked within the top 100 as the 99th most powerful god king. It was truly a high ranking. Gongzheng and Bai Yi opened their eyes and looked at Jian together. They became stern. With Brother Jian's great soul extension pill, we've basically recovered from our injured souls. Although it'll still take a very long time before we make a complete recovery, it won't affect our strength too much. I, Gongzheng, will never forget Brother Jian's assistance today. If I get the opportunity in the future, I will definitely return the favor. Gongzheng stood up and clasped his hands at Jian. Bai Yi stood up as well and clasped his fist towards Jian, saying similar things to him. If it were not for the god-tier great soul extension pill that specialized in healing souls from Jian, they would not have been able to recover to their current level. Jian laughed aloud. Our sect has close ties with your solitary sword lineage, so a mere matter like this is not worth mentioning. Prepare yourselves, as we're about to start. I hope that everyone can pour their strength together and completely unleash the defensive power of the radiant bead of the rising sun. That way, we can last even longer in the lava, so it'll be more likely for us to find the girl. Very soon, Jian gathered everyone and took out his god artifact, the radiant bead of the rising sun. He was prepared to utilize the god artifact with everyone's strength and dive into the lava. At the same time, many other groups began to move as well. Each group had a single defensive god artifact at the very least. They would use various methods to combine the powers of many people so that they could unleash the full power of the god artifact, which would protect them when they dove into the lava. However, at this moment, a powerful ripple of energy appeared in the distance. An azure figure appeared there, seemingly transformed into an azure peng. He moved extremely quickly as he fled desperately. There were 6 other figures that shone with the glow of laws behind him, pursuing him closely as they launched powerful attacks towards the fleeing person mercilessly. He's Ming Dong, and the person being pursued is a supreme god king. I think I remember the fleeing person as one of the people who took part in the encirclement against Chen. I never thought he would be reduced to such a shape by Ming Dong. That's the Azure Peng's movement technique. Anyone who can use it definitely belongs to the Azure Peng King. I really wonder what Ming Dong's origins are, where he doesn't even fear the Azure Peng King. The Azure Peng King is renowned for his sensitivity. The eyes of a few god kings in the distance narrowed at the sight of this as they sighed in amazement. Boom! At this moment, a heavy sound suddenly rang out as over a dozen volcanoes in the surroundings erupted together. Terrifying lava formed over a dozen pillars of fire that plunged into the sky before falling down like rain. It engulfed the entire region, creating a storm of lava. The 8th floor was never stable. The battles between regular god kings was already enough to cause volcanoes to erupt, so all the god kings gathered in the area had to conceal their presences carefully. Ming Dong had now come pursuing Song Ying furiously with the divine generals, and he struck out recklessly. He unleashed his power that was on par with supreme god kings as destructive power formed ripples of energy. This immediately disrupted the peace there, causing the volcanoes in the surroundings to erupt. Oh no! Dodge! The expressions of all the god kings around changed when they saw the raining lava. They scattered in the surroundings as quickly as they could. Even the supreme god kings on the god king's throne could not help but become frantic as they tried to avoid the lava to the best of their ability. Even a droplet of lava would be far more than a supreme god king could endure, as it would be thousands of times hotter than the center of the sun. Now, Ming Dong had already caught up with Tsang Ying. His eyes were cold as he radiated with killing intent. He swung his sword towards Tsang Ying with the powers of destruction, causing Tsang Ying to spurt blood constantly. The azure peng scales that protected him dimmed in color. Ming Dong's strike possessed extravagant power. Terrifying ripples of energy swept out like storms, causing even more volcanoes to erupt instantaneously. Boom! 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 Immediately, the sounds rang out without any signs of stopping. All the volcanoes within hundreds of thousands of kilometers of Ming Dong emerged from dormancy and erupted one after another. Pillars of lava shot into the sky consecutively like roaring, furious dragons, turning into a rain of lava. It fell with many fire-divine crystals and terrifying heat. The entire 8th floor shook violently as the fire-attributed energy in the surroundings became extremely violent. Even the sea of lava below everyone tossed and turned. Arg! In that instance, miserable cries rang out in the surroundings. Under the torrential lava rain, many god kings failed to dodge in time and were struck by the lava. Not only did they catch on fire, but holes were melted through their bodies as well. Oh no, there are too many people gathered here. Even with your presence suppressed, it forms a pressure that affects this place. It silently destroyed the stability of the volcanoes, causing them to erupt with an intensity that has never before seen. Quick! Stop! Stop fighting! Chapter 2105, Confrontation. For a moment, shouts rang out everywhere. All the god kings gathered in the volcanic world avoided the raining lava with ugly expressions as they shouted at Ming Dong. Some of the more powerful god kings who either wore defensive supreme quality saint artifacts or god artifacts charged towards Ming Dong with lightning speed in an attempt to stop him from fighting on the floor. All fighting is forbidden on the 8th floor. Stop immediately, or you'll become an enemy of everyone, sir. There are far too many god kings gathered in this space. It has already affected the stability of these volcanoes. Any pulse of energy can lead to a colossal eruption. I don't care what F** king grievance you two have, but you better stop here and conceal your presences obediently, or don't blame me for being impolite. Furious shouts rang out as over 20 god kings stood in Ming Dong's way. Every single one of them was extremely powerful and more than half of them wielded god artifacts. Even more people watched on from a distance as they avoided the lava rain. It's actually Ming Dong. He's protected by the divine generals of the heavenly palace of Biyao. Some of the supreme god kings in the crowd knew Ming Dong's identity, which made their faces change slightly. They originally wanted to charge over as well, but they came to a halt. They did not know just what relationship Ming Dong had with the heavenly palace of Biyao and whether he was the disciples of one of the majesties there. However, as long as he possessed the slightest connection to the heavenly palace of Biyao, they did not dare to offend him. Bai Yi and Gong Jing discovered Ming Dong as well. They looked at each other as a grave light filled their eyes. 4 of the 8 supreme god kings who had ganged up against Jian Chen had passed away in such a short amount of time. The 5th, Tsang Ying, had been fleeing in such horrible shape as well, so they feared Ming Dong's strength greatly. Turns out he's Ming Dong. In the past few days, his name has been ringing through my ears constantly. Jian stared at Ming Dong, who was stopped by over 20 god kings, and he could not help but sneer. He made his way before Gong Jing through the air and looked at how Gong Jing frowned. He could not help but laugh aloud. Gong Jing, I know the two of you are being targeted by Ming Dong. However, you don't need to worry at all. Here, Ming Dong won't dare to even touch you. Who knows where this Ming Dong came from? He is indeed a little too mad, said a supreme god king in Jian's temporary group. His voice was cold. Tsang Ying had stopped running. He hovered in the air with a pale face as he looked at Ming Dong in angst. He experienced lingering fear. Ming Dong was far more powerful than he had imagined him to be. He firmly believed that if it were not for the warning of his Azure Peng's scale and the Azure Peng's movement technique, he would not have been able to escape from Ming Dong. Tsang Ying, why don't you join our group? Otherwise, you'll struggle to protect yourself if you remain alone in your current shape, Gong Zheng suddenly said to Tsang Ying secretly, inviting him to come over. When Tsang Ying saw that it was Gong Zheng talking to him, his eyes immediately lit up. Afterwards, he discovered Bai Yi who stood with Gong Zheng and no longer hesitated. He firmly agreed to join Gong Zheng's group. The three of them all knew very well that they had bounties placed on them by Ming Dong, so they were definitely on Ming Dong's kill list. With the strength that Ming Dong had displayed so far, resisting him alone was an extremely unwise decision. Only by working together could them fend him off. Naturally, Ming Dong discovered Bai Yi and Gong Zheng. Although this was the first time he had seen them, he had already collected all the information available on the two of them in the past few days. Bai Yi, Gong Zheng, I never thought the two of you would be here as well. The heavens are really smiling on me. I'll kill you all today. I want you to bleed for my brother's soul in the afterlife. Ming Dong looked at the three of them from afar. His icy voice was filled with heavy killing intent. Afterwards, he looked at the God Kings in his way. Not only did he show no fear, but he even seemed slightly mad instead. He growled, anyone who stands in the way of my revenge will become my greatest enemy. Do you really want to stop me? As he said that, a powerful presence began to radiate from Ming Dong, charging up like a furious storm. Currently, Ming Dong was cold and brutal. The forcefulness he showed off was so evident that anyone could tell that he was ready to begin fighting at any time. The God Kings who blocked Ming Dong sneered when they heard Ming Dong's threat. They showed disdain towards him. Not only were all of them extremely powerful God Kings who ranked on the God King's throne, but their backgrounds were extremely significant as well. Every single one of them had the support of a peak clan or peak sect, so they treated Ming Dong's threat like nothing. In particular, there was a young man in red robes amongst the supreme God Kings. His name was Xian Long, and he was known for his short temper. He was unable to withstand Ming Dong's arrogance, so he immediately smiled coldly after hearing the threat. His gaze became extremely hostile, and he took a step forwards while coldness filled his eyes. However, just when Xian Long wanted to say something, he suddenly heard a voice. Xian Long, you cannot afford to provoke this person calling Ming Dong, or you'll cause great trouble for your clan. Do you know who the 5 guards behind Ming Dong are? They're divine generals of the heavenly palace of Bisheng. Only Xian Long heard this voice. Aside from him, no one else around him did. However, when Xian Long heard this news, his face immediately changed. He directly looked past Ming Dong and focused on the 5 guards behind him. Disbelief filled his face. Huang Baiyun, are you certain that they're divine generals of the heavenly palace of Bisheng? Xian Long asked secretly as he became uneasy. His short temper was forcefully suppressed, as he had learnt the identities of the divine guards. I'm completely certain. When the 5 of them entered the Neptunian divine palace, the armor they wore was specially made from the heavenly palace of Bisheng, someone replied with complete confidence. After receiving confirmation, Xian Long immediately became stern. He deeply glanced at Ming Dong before clasping his fist towards him. Without saying anything else, he turned around and left. He did not dare to stick his nose in this matter any longer. Although Xian Long was short-tempered, he was not stupid. He understood very well just who he could ignore and who he could not provoke. Although he did not know Ming Dong's exact identity, 5 divine generals from the heavenly palace of Bisheng followed him. Just that was enough to make him an existence that could not be provoked. Even though it had been rumored that the Anata Grand Prime had passed away many years ago in the Saints' world, as long as the majesties of the heavenly palace of Bisheng remained, the heavenly palace of Bisheng would never collapse. The first majesty, in particular, was a terrifying figure that could deter all organizations across the 49 Great Plains and the 81 Great Planets. Xian Long's sudden response stunned the people who were looking forward to the show. Even the supreme God Kings who stood with Xian Long in Ming Dong's way were clearly startled. From Xian Long's previous expression and composure, anyone could tell with a single glance that he was going to oppose Ming Dong. Many of them were even ready for a good show. However, they had never thought that the final outcome would be so unexpected. Xian Long actually said nothing and directly backed off. Did his action not clarify before so many people that he would not be stopping Ming Dong any longer? Moreover, he had even clasped his fist towards Ming Dong amiably when he left. Who was Xian Long? Not only was he a supreme God King ranked on the God King's throne, but his background was extremely great as well. In the eyes of many, Xian Long was an indomitable existence that they could only look up to, yet he actually cowered from a single threat from Ming Dong. Many people found this difficult to believe. Xian Long's cowering made the expressions of the other supreme God Kings in Ming Dong's way change slightly. They all studied Ming Dong as they became riddled with surprise and doubt. The faces of Tsang Ying, Bai Yi, and Gong Zheng who were already present became very ugly. Xian Long had given in before everyone, without any consideration for his pride as a supreme God King after just a single threat from Ming Dong. This showed everyone that Xian Long's fear towards Ming Dong had reached a terrifying level. Xian Long's ranking on the God King's throne is quite high. He's extremely powerful, yet he's afraid of offending Ming Dong. Just what are Ming Dong's origins? Bai Yi questioned. Tsang Ying and Gong Zheng both shook their heads. They had never heard of the name Ming Dong before. It had only spread through the Neptunian Divine Palace recently. They were completely clueless about his identity and background. At this moment, several more people among the Supreme God Kings in Ming Dong's way received secret messages. Without any exception, the expressions of all those who were warned changed as shock filled their eyes. They glanced at Ming Dong and the 5 divine generals behind him deeply and clasped their fists before all retreating. With that, only around a dozen Supreme God Kings remained in Ming Dong's way. However, at this moment, all of these God Kings looked at one another. They hesitated as if they were stuck in a tough position. Clearly, they too had realized that Ming Dong's identity was probably significant, or it was impossible for so many Supreme God Kings to actively avoid him. At the same time, over a dozen God Kings appeared at the entrance of the 8th floor from the 7th floor. A young man and woman stood at the very front of the group. The other God Kings followed them like guards. Junior Moore, you must be careful on the 8th floor. Both the volcanoes and the lava beneath you are extraordinary. They're extremely terrifying. Even when Supreme God Kings on the God King's throne come here, they have to be careful. The young man at the front with a striking appearance looked at the veiled woman by his side gently. He spoke softly, where his affection for her was evident. The two of them were Jun Kong and Shengguan Moore, who had hurried over from the Taoist sect of divine sound from the Skyfire Plain. The God Kings behind them were all disciples of the Taoist sect of divine sound. Shengguan Moore hovered in the air as she looked at the volcanic world with her enchanting eyes. Some emotions flooded her face beneath the veil at this moment. He has been here, Shengguan Moore thought. As soon as she set foot on the 8th floor, she experienced a mysterious, wondrous feeling. It was instinctual. She could sense that Chen had been here, causing her unwavering heart to ripple. She was filled with excitement and joy. Jun Kong did not sense the minute change with Shengguan Moore. He said easily, our primary reason for coming to the Neptunian Divine Palace this time is to go to the 12th floor and find a way to awaken the artifact spirit of the zither of the demonic cry. As a result, we do not need to stop for too long along the way. Let's proceed to the 12th floor directly. Junior Moore, do you have any objections? You go to the 12th floor first. I want to have a look at this place, said Shengguan Moore. With that, she left by herself. She went off to search for Chen's traces with a heart that beat heavily. Junior Moore, be careful. It's very dangerous here, Jun Kong immediately chased after her. He showed deep concern as he said gently, since Junior Moore wants to have a look here, I'll accompany you. Although danger is everywhere in this space, where volcanoes can erupt at any time, there's no need to worry too much if I'm by your side. As they spoke, they had already crossed over 10,000 kilometers. However, at this moment, Jun Kong's eyes suddenly narrowed. He stared in front of him uneasily as he immediately became stern. He said gravely, so many powerful presences. Strange, why have so many God Kings gathered up ahead? There are even quite a few Supreme God Kings among them. Jun Kong's face changed several times rapidly before he suddenly stopped Shengguan Mu'er. He said grimly, Junio Mu'er, stay here and don't move for now. I'll go check out what has happened over there, seeing how so many Supreme God Kings have gathered together. Jun Kong left the God Kings from the Daoist sect of Divine Sound with Shengguan Mu'er to ensure her safety as he flew on ahead by himself. He disappeared in the blink of an eye. Very soon, Jun Kong arrived where the many God Kings had gathered. As soon as he arrived there, he saw the confrontation between Ming Dong and the Supreme God Kings, which made Jun Kong shiver. Many of these Supreme God Kings are even greater than me, but they clearly don't seem confident against the 6 of them. They can even be described as completely unconfident. Who are the 6 of them? They can actually make around a dozen Supreme God Kings show so much hesitance. The sight greatly shocked Jun Kong as he struggled to remain calm. Afterwards, Jun Kong questioned some God Kings with regular strength that were nearby and understood why so many God Kings had gathered here. It's said that they've all gathered here to search for a girl protected by the world. It's rumored that whoever gets the girl gets the Neptunian Divine Palace. The girl was taken away by a person called Chen in the end. When Chen fled here with the girl afterwards, he was slain by Supreme God Kings, and the girl seemed to fall into the lava. The God Kings questioned by Jun Kong explained the matter in a few short sentences. Even though they did not know a lot, they understood the rough story. However, when Jun Kong heard the name Chen, his heart shook. He immediately followed up with more questions. Does this person called Chen comprehend the laws of the sword? Is he a young man who seems to be in his 20s? It seems so, that's right. That's him. Although I've never seen Chen, I have heard of him before. Your description matches him perfectly. After receiving confirmation, Jun Kong became overjoyed. He could not help but laugh aloud. Perhaps there were many people who shared the same names in the saints' world, but it was almost impossible for there to be several people with the same name and characteristics. As a result, Jun Kong was basically certain that the Chen who died here was the person that his beloved Mu'er thought about all day and night. Ha ha ha. Chen, I never thought you'd die here. The heavens really are smiling on me. And I had even been ready to go to the cloud plane to kill you after the trip to the Neptunian Divine Palace, but I never thought you would have already died here. It looks like the heavens want me to be with Junior Mu'er. Chen's supposed death made Jun Kong completely overjoyed. He called out uncontrollably as if he wanted to vent his current joy. Jun Kong's voice was not very loud, but all the experts gathered in the area were powerful. They could capture the slightest noise from over 1,000 kilometers away, so they naturally heard Jun Kong's words. Originally, emotional words like that would not have been enough to raise any attention, but Jun Kong just happened to mention the sensitive name of Chen. Immediately, the God Kings in the surroundings all looked at Jun Kong. A strange expression filled their faces. There were even people who looked forward to his suffering. The God Kings who answered Jun Kong's questions completely paled in fright as they swore inside. Of all the people you could curse, you just had to curse Chen. Don't you know that an extremely vicious person called Ming Dong has shown up right after Chen's death? He has been directly hunting down Supreme God Kings in the Neptunian Divine Palace, causing the deaths of 4 of them. You might be looking to die, but don't drag us into it as well. In the distance, the Supreme God Kings who had confronted Ming Dong slowly looked over as well. They looked at Jun Kong laughing aloud in the distance as their gazes became extremely terrifying. They seemed to have become bloodthirsty beasts. Chapter 2107, Chen's brother, he, who is this idiot? He has actually exposed his hostility towards Chen at this time, and he even stated he wants to kill Chen. Doesn't he know that this person called Ming Dong is avenging Chen right now? Or is it because both his strength and background is enough to suppress Ming Dong completely, to the point where he has no need to fear Ming Dong's threats at all? I just happen to know him. He's a Supreme God King from the Daoist sect of Divine Sound from the Skyfire Plane. His name is Jun Kong. I never thought he would come to the Neptunian Divine Palace as well, the Taoist sect of Divine Sound. I've heard Master mention this sect. In the past, because of the third ancestor's existence, the Taoist sect of Divine Sound was a peak organization that was renowned throughout the Saints' world. There was barely anyone in the Saints' world who could afford to offend them, but unfortunately, after the third ancestor died, the Taoist sect of Divine Sound declined as well. There are probably very few people who still remember this sect in the Saints' world now. If that third ancestor still remains, no one will truly be bold enough to offend him in the Neptunian Divine Palace. But as for right now, the God Kings gathered in the surroundings discussed the matter softly. They all looked at Jun Kong with either a sneer or head-shaking sighs. As a Supreme God King, Jun Kong's personal strength was extremely great. Although he had lost control over his emotions due to Chen's supposed death, he was still able to sense it immediately when so many people looked at him. Instantly, he sensed that something was off. The strange atmosphere made his heart tighten, and his laughter stopped. In the next moment, there was an extremely powerful pulse of energy. A strand of sword chi several meters in length tore through the air with pure and dense power of the laws of destruction as it cleaved towards Jun Kong mercilessly. Jun Kong's entire body suddenly tremored when the sword chi locked down on him. Suddenly, he looked at the sword chi that directly shot towards him. As his face was filled with doubt and confusion, there was also grimness. The power of sword chi shocked him. In particular, the laws of destruction within the sword chi that seemed to be able to destroy everything made him feel like he was unable to fend it off. A jade flute appeared in Jun Kong's hands silently. He stood sternly with the jade flute to his mouth. As soon as he began playing it, an enchanting sound rang out. It was pleasant, almost otherworldly, and it was enough to permeate the depths of everyone's soul and steal their minds. As the flute rang out, visible ripples expanded outwards like arrows to receive the incoming sword chi. Boom! 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 Deafening rumbles rang out as the sound waves came in contact with the sword chi. Jun Kong used his way of music and the power of the flute to fend off the sword chi with the laws of destruction. However, the sword chi was just too powerful. With Jun Kong's strength that was only just enough to make it onto the God King's throne, it was quite difficult for him to deal with it. After he created several hundred waves, he only managed to disperse half of the sword chi's power. And now, the sword chi with the laws of destruction had already arrived before him. A vicious light flickered through Jun Kong's eyes. Bellowing out, he suddenly swung his jade flute, using the power of his cultivation to smash the remaining sword chi. With a boom, the sword chi finally dispersed completely. However, Jun Kong was reduced to a horrible shape as well. Many holes had appeared in the luxurious robes he wore. As the two of them fought, the shockwaves of energy destroyed the stability of the volcanoes nearby, so several dozens of them erupted at the same time. The lava fell from the sky like rain with many fire divine crystals, frightening the God Kings engulfed by the rain and causing them to dodge in a panic. You sure play the flute well. It's actually enough to make my mind resonate with it, where it draws my mind away even when I try resisting. He is the supreme prodigy of the Taoist sect of Divine Sound after all. His mastery over music has indeed broadened my horizons. However, it's still a little too soon for him. A supreme God King could not help but praise from a distance. It's said that the music of the Taoist sect of Divine Sound utilizes the mysteries of the world, allowing them to conduct the laws of the world and use their very essence. I wonder if that's true. I don't care about the rest. Just the extremely pleasant music is enough for me to pay a visit to the Taoist sect of Divine Sound. The flute music almost sucked my soul away in that previous instance. Discussions between many supreme God Kings rang out in the surroundings, but Jun Kong was in no mood to listen to the praises. At that moment, his face was sunken as he stared at the young man before him with an ugly expression. His joy from hearing about Chen's death had completely vanished now. My friend, may I ask how I have offended you, where you have to attack me for no reason? Jun Kong clasped his fist as he said with an ugly expression. There was extremely deep angst in his gaze towards the young man. The young man standing before him was Ming Dong. The 5 divine generals stood right behind him, and their faces were all emotionless and cold. Jian Chen is dead, but you seem very happy. What is your grievance with Jian Chen? And who is this Mua you speak of? Ming Dong stood before Jun Kong as his presence surged with great ferocity. His voice was ice cold. Jun Kong hesitated. He had only just entered the Neptunian Divine Palace, so he had no idea that Ming Dong was avenging Jian Chen. As a result, he was rather uncertain about Ming Dong and Jian Chen's relationship at this moment. My friend, the matters between Jian Chen and me don't seem to involve you, Jun Kong said carefully. He had personally witnessed the young man face off against over a dozen god kings, and he did not seem to take them seriously at all from how he acted before. Jun Kong could not afford to offend someone like that. Is the Mua you speak of Shangguan Mu'er? Ming Dong followed with another question. When Ming Dong mentioned Shangguan Mu'er's name, Jun Kong's eyes immediately narrowed. He stared at the young man who stood like a god of slaughter in shock as disbelief flooded his face. Although he could not say that he knew about Shangguan Mu'er's origins completely, he did know most of it. He knew that she had come from a lower world and had not spent much time in the saints' world yet. She was basically a nameless figure in the saints' world. Yet, how was it possible that such a powerful supreme god king knew about someone like her? Clearly, it did not make sense. Jun Kong would never have believed that Shangguan Mu'er knew this person. Who knew how many years the supreme god king before him had spent on cultivation, while Shangguan Mu'er had only just come to the saints' world, and her cultivation was nothing special. How was it possible for her to know such an esteemed figure? Although Jun Kong did not reply, Ming Dong received his answer from his facial reaction alone. I understand now. You lust after Shangguan Mu'er because of her beauty, and since Jian Chen is Shangguan Mu'er's husband, he's in your way of pursuing her. That's why you want Jian Chen dead. Am I right? Ming Dong said coldly as his glare became extremely sharp. Jun Kong's face changed. He could not help but stagger backwards as he stared at Ming Dong in shock. His heart churned. Not only did the young man before him know about Shangguan Mu'er, but he even knew about her relationship with Jian Chen. How was this possible? It had to be mentioned that even in the Taoist sect of Divine Sound, only 2 elders and the ancestors knew about Shangguan Mu'er and Jian Chen's relationship, so how did this young man know as well? Jian Chen is a brother that has gone through thick and thin with me, which makes Shangguan Mu'er my sister-in-law. Not only are you eyeing my sister-in-law, but you want to kill my brother as well. You're looking to die, Ming Dong said through gritted teeth. His terrifying gaze made it seem like he was tempted to rip Jun Kong to shreds. Immediately, he raised his sword and slashed at Jun Kong with the laws of destruction. This time, Ming Dong had struck out of fury. It was far more powerful than before. What? Jian Chen is your brother? Mu'er is your sister-in-law. Jun Kong's eyes widened greatly. This information was like a bolt from the blue for him. It stunned him to the point where he became slightly dazed. Chapter 2108, Crushing Jun Kong. Impossible. Impossible. That is completely impossible, Jun Kong murmured while shaking his head. He could not feel more shocked at this moment. He understood both Shangguan Mu'er and Jian Chen's origins. However, Jian Chen had always been someone as puny as an ant in his eyes. Now that he suddenly possessed such a powerful brother, Jun Kong was unable to accept this at all. It was even more impossible for him to accept that his beloved junior Mu'er was this supreme god king's sister-in-law. Turns out Ming Dong and Jian Chen are connected like this. No wonder Jian Chen's death drove Ming Dong insane, where he would go as far as to offend all those peak organizations to kill those supreme god kings. Turns out the 2 of them have gone through everything together and have forged a bond of life and death. A bond like that is a friendship where one can trust the other with their life. They might even view each other's lives with more importance than their own. This bond is so deep that it has completely exceeded the bond of being juniors and seniors under the same master. The god kings in the surroundings came to a realization, while Tsanging, Gongzheng, and Baiyi's heart all sank. Their faces became ugly. Jian Chen and Ming Dong's bond was far deeper than what they had expected. At this moment, Ming Dong's sword was swung towards Jun Kong with the power of the laws of destruction. From the destructive presence, it seemed like it could annihilate everything. Although Jun Kong was dazed, he was still a supreme god king after all. At that critical moment, he immediately responded. With a flip of his hand, a hand-sized bell appeared silently before rapidly expanding. It became several meters across in a single instance, engulfing him completely. Clang! When Ming Dong's strike landed on the bell, it immediately produced a deep chime. Terrifying sound waves expanded in all directions as visible ripples. The sound waves were extremely dangerous. As it expanded, it caused the lava below to churn as volcanoes erupted one after another. A large amount of lava fell from the sky in waves. It never seemed to stop. Ming Dong placed his sword across his body to block the incoming sound waves. He stared at the undamaged bell coldly and said, "Do you think I can't do anything to you just because you have a defensive god artifact?" With that, a set of armor silently appeared, covering every inch of Ming Dong. When the lava rain landed on the armor, it failed to damage it at all. The armor was a defensive god artifact as well. Afterwards, Ming Dong stowed away his supreme quality saint artifact sword and changed it for a god artifact sword. The laws of destruction condensed and immediately erupted with surging power as he struck the sword viciously. Boom! The collision between the two god artifacts was thunderous and deafening. Terrifying ripples of energy swept out as tidal waves, wreaking havoc in the surroundings and blowing away the lava rain. Ming Dong's strike knocked the bell that enveloped Jun Kong far away, and it only stopped several thousand meters away. Jun Kong appeared from under the bell. With a sunken face, he stared at Ming Dong, who radiated with killing intent. As a supreme god king and the prodigy of the Taoist sect of divine sound, he naturally possessed his own pride and dignity. Even when he knew Ming Dong's background was probably significant, he could not control his anger when he had been attacked by Ming Dong time and time again. Moreover, he could already tell that Ming Dong wanted to kill him. Clearly, the Taoist sect of divine sound behind him was no different from a prop. It did not deter Ming Dong at all. The jade flute rang out slowly. The sound seemed to conform to nature, and it was otherworldly. It rang out with an enchanting charm. The bell above Jun Kong blocked the lava rain, allowing him to stand beneath it and play the flute. He used the way of music against his opponent, using the music to influence the mind and attempt to throw the soul into disarray. He used sound waves as his weapon, piercing through space to injure the body. Jun Kong began to fight back against Ming Dong's killing intent. "Humph. You better go cultivate for a few more centuries if you want to throw my soul into disarray," Ming Dong snorted coldly. He was currently protected by a god artifact, so basically nothing could harm or affect him. He seemed as vicious as a god of war. He charged through the lava rain with his god artifact sword like a hot knife through butter, killing his way towards Jun Kong. The battle between the two was not particularly intense. However, the terrifying ripples from the constant clashes of the two god artifacts wreaked havoc in the surroundings and led to colossal eruptions of volcanoes. The sea of lava below churned with huge waves, which splashed into the sky, adding a red hue. Jun Kong remained unscathed from several of Ming Dong's attacks through the god artifact. However, using a god artifact would lead to rapid exhaustion for any supreme god king. It was impossible for him to last for very long. At that moment, he had already paled, and it seemed like he could not last for much longer. Boom! Finally, Jun Kong lost the power required to keep up the defenses of the bell under one of Ming Dong's attacks. He stowed the bell away and immediately spurted a mouthful of blood. He was heavily injured. "You definitely won't be leaving here alive for eyeing my brother's woman, my sister-in-law," Ming Dong said coldly as he radiated with an icy presence. Using his fists, he launched a barrage of attacks against Jun Kong. He switched between punches and palm strikes as both his legs and arms moved. With a powerful force, he gave Jun Kong a beating so cruel that no one dared to watch it unfold directly. Although Ming Dong had no grievances with Jun Kong, Ming Dong's hatred towards him was even greater than what he felt towards the 8 God Kings who worked against Jian Chen due to Jun Kong's intentions. Ming Dong wanted to properly torture him before killing him off. Jun Kong was unable to fight back at all. He was completely under Ming Dong's control. His body was like a sandbag, beaten around in the air by Ming Dong. Not only were there cuts on him, but all his bones and organs had shattered and had been reduced to a pulp by Ming Dong's punches. His bloodied face had become distorted long ago, bearing no resemblance to his original appearance. Even his skull had shattered. He was extremely miserable. Jun Kong's soul remained, so he still was not dead. He stared at Ming Dong furiously as he was filled with hatred, but there just happened to be nothing he could do. Ming Dong knew many ancient secret methods, so he had sealed up Jun Kong's cultivation and trapped his soul in his body long ago, preventing him from using any secret techniques to flee or abandoning his body with his soul. He could only watch Ming Dong demolish him. Chapter 2109. Moor steps forward. The surroundings had become crowded long ago. All the God Kings hovered in the air as they watched on silently. When a few regular God Kings saw Ming Dong's great strength, they were extremely shocked as they showed angst in their gazes towards Ming Dong. As for the Supreme God Kings, they all remained emotionless and completely indifferent. They watched this calmly. No one intervened in the battle between them. Even when they caused the volcanoes in the surroundings to erupt, they seemed like they did not care. The retreat of some of the God Kings who blocked Ming Dong before made everyone cautious. It made them truly realize just how much they could not afford to provoke the people behind Ming Dong. As a result, they naturally would not offend a powerful expert over this puny matter that was unfolding before them. They would only stand forward regardless of the consequences if it was a matter that interfered with their core interests. At this moment, Ming Dong ran out of interest with beating up Jun Kong. He stopped and took out his supreme quality saint artifact again. Killing intent wrapped around him as he stabbed at Jun Kong's forehead firmly. Jun Kong had already lost the capacity to fight. Even his cultivation had been sealed up by Ming Dong, so he was in no shape to dodge Ming Dong's attack at all. Even though many God Kings were gathered in the surroundings, with many Supreme God Kings from the Skyfire Plain, none of them intervened. This was because they had already understood Ming Dong's temperament and methods. They knew that not only would they fail to save Jun Kong if they stepped forward at a time like this, but they would even be dragged into the matter instead, and it would only lead to personal trouble. Stop! However, a female shout suddenly rang out at this moment. It was soft and as pleasant as a lark's song. The voice startled many God Kings in the surroundings. Ming Dong's killing intent towards Jun Kong was so powerful that they could tell with a single glance that no one could stop him. If they spoke up, a horrible fate would be waiting for them. However, there just happened to be someone who did not fear Ming Dong's fury, speaking out at a time like this. It immediately attracted the surprised gazes of all the God Kings as they gazed in the voice's direction. The veiled Shangguan Moor shot over with lightning speed with the other God Kings of the Daoist sect of Divine Sound, flying directly towards Ming Dong. Ming Dong's stab came to a halt. He looked at Shangguan Moor, who approached him quickly, and he recognized her with a single glance. After being separated on the Tian Yuan continent, Shangguan Moor was the first old friend Ming Dong had seen. Originally, their reunion should have been something worthy of celebration, but now that Jian Chen was dead, Ming Dong was unable to cheer up no matter what. Only surging hatred and a furious urge for revenge filled him. Sister-in-law, do you want to save him? Or do you want to kill him yourself? Ming Dong's sword pointed at Jun Kong's forehead as his killing intent did not decrease at all. He turned around and asked Shangguan Moor. There was no excitement or joy. There were no emotions at all. His voice was extremely cold. In reality, Ming Dong could tell that Shangguan Moor had already become a God King now as well. He felt much doubt as to why she could reach such a level in such a short amount of time. At the same time, he had many queries, but the death of his best friend filled him with grief, almost to the point where he had lost all rationality. All that remained in his mind was revenge, revenge, revenge. Shangguan Mu'er looked at Ming Dong deeply as shock and disbelief filled her eyes. She knew that Jian Chen had always been thinking of Ming Dong, who suddenly vanished from the 9th floor of the Inata Tower all those years ago. After coming to the Saint's world, he had thought about looking for him several times, but she had never thought that Ming Dong would suddenly appear in the Neptunian Divine Palace, and his cultivation was so powerful. Ming Dong, I've finally found you. Did you know that in all those years you were missing, Jian Chen always thought about you? He even wanted to go on a long journey to search for you right when he came to the Saint's world and before he had properly strengthened up, Shangguan Mu'er said softly. She did not mention the matter with Jun Kong. Sorrow filled Ming Dong's eyes. He closed them painfully, and tears ran down his cheeks uncontrollably. He had constantly been thinking about Jian Chen, who had once gone through thick and thin with him on the Tianyuan continent. However, just when he began to search for him, he learned that Jian Chen was dead. Ming Dong sucked in a deep breath. When he opened his eyes again, they were cold and emotionless. He asked once again, "Sister-in-law, you stopped me from killing him earlier. Do you want to save him, or do you want to kill him yourself?" Shangguan Mu'er finally looked at Jun Kong. Seeing the horrible shape he had been reduced to, her expression did not change at all. She said, "Jun Kong is my senior in the sect. I owe his master, so let him go this time, Ming Dong." "Let him go?" Ming Dong's eyes suddenly narrowed as he shouted out emotionally, "Do you know that this person wanted to kill my brother, yet you want me to let him go right now? Won't you be letting my brother down by doing this? Won't you be letting down his soul in the afterlife?" At this moment, Ming Dong seemed frenzied, like a furious lion. Shangguan Mu'er's had filled him with disappointment and rage. "If I insist on killing him, will you stop me?" Ming Dong called out. He was very emotional. "I will." Shangguan Mu'er said calmly, "Jun Kong's master is one of the 4 ancestors of the Daoist sect of divine sound and has shown me kindness. I'm only saving Jun Kong this time because of his master. It has nothing to do with Jun Kong. And after this, even if Jun Kong faces danger again, it'll have nothing to do with me." Ming Dong sucked in a few deep breaths after listening to Shangguan Mu'er's explanation and slowly calmed down. He said, "All right. If that's the case, I'll do it for you and spare him this time." Ming Dong stowed his sword away as he stared at Jun Kong coldly. He directly kicked Jun Kong away and shouted out, "Piss off." Jun Kong's crushed body was caught by the other god kings of the Daoist sect of divine sound in a flurry. Various pills were fed into Jun Kong's mouth regardless of their value. Ming Dong, on the other hand, did not talk too much with Shangguan Mu'er. Instead, he turned around and made his way towards Gongzheng, Baiyi, and Sanging. Although his presence was powerful, his figure seemed rather bleak and lonely. "Senior Kong, you should have never, ever wanted to kill Jian Chen. You know he's my husband, so if you want to become his enemy, you're becoming my enemy." Shangguan Mu'er turned around and stared at Jun Kong emotionlessly. She continued, "This matter won't end here yet. Haven't you been looking down on my husband the entire time? I believe that before long, you will meet him, and I won't be able to help you anymore when that happens." Jun Kong had been viciously crushed by Ming Dong in an almost embarrassing manner. As the supreme prodigy of the Daoist sect of divine sound and a proud supreme god king on the god king's throne, he refused to accept it. He had become furious long ago. And now that he saw his beloved Mu'er not only fail to comfort him while he was so injured but instead treat him so coldly, stating their relationship clearly, his fury immediately turned on him. As a result, he vomited a mouthful of blood uncontrollably. Afterwards, Jun Kong seemed like he had experienced a huge stimulant. He began to laugh aloud with his deformed mouth as he said in an unclear voice, "Jian Chen? You're still thinking about Jian Chen? Ha 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 ha, Shangguan Mu'er, you probably still don't know, but your Jian Chen that you could never let go of has died long ago. It's a true death this time. His corpse has been buried in the lava beneath you. You'll never be able to see him again in this life." Ha 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 ha, Jun Kong became more excited the more he spoke, as if Jian Chen's death was the only matter that could free his mind and ease his pain. However, to Jun Kong's disappointment, he failed to see any sorrow from Shangguan Mu'er. Currently, her expression remained the same, completely emotionless. I'll leave Jun Kong to you to protect. You don't need to follow me anymore. I don't need your protection, Shangguan Mu'er said to the god kings around Jun Kong. The god kings from the Daoist sect of divine sound looked at one another and seemed troubled. They had no idea what to do now. To another side, the faces of Gongzheng, Bai Yi, and Song Ying immediately became extremely ugly as they watched Ming Dong approach them slowly like a god of slaughter. Right now, they could no longer rely on the supreme god kings gathered there to step forward and stop Ming Dong. After these matters, Ming Dong's current might was so great that the three supreme god kings felt like they were suffocating. Perhaps he could tell Gongzheng's worries, so Jian patted Gongzheng's shoulder. He said sternly, Gongzheng, you don't need to worry too much. Since you're the successor to the solitary sword lineage, I won't let anything happen to you here. Leave it all up to me. With that, Jian took a step forward and looked at Ming Dong. He growled, Ming Dong, I hope you can stop here. We've not all gathered here today to watch you exact revenge. Don't get in the way of everyone just for your personal grievances. You'll tarry our matters, which are even more important. With that, a powerful presence flooded out from Jian's body. The lava below him churned with huge waves. Jian's presence was so powerful that it had completely exceeded most supreme god kings. After all, he was ranked 99th on the God King's throne. Just this ranking alone was enough for him to look down on all opponents of the same level. As expected, as soon as Jian revealed his presence, the eyes of many supreme God Kings present narrowed as they showed fear in the depths of their gazes. You want to stop me? Ming Dong strode through the air as he glared at Jian. He said with a voice filled with killing intent, You are indeed very strong, but you still can't stop me from killing them. Ming Dong, if we do end up fighting, there will naturally be a clash between god artifacts. That will lead to eruptions from all the volcanoes here, and at that time, there won't be any safe place on the 8th floor. It will affect everyone here. Do you really want to become the enemy of all of us? Jian growled. Ming Dong's origins were still a mystery to him, so Jian was unwilling to just begin fighting with him so easily. We've come here in search of that little girl. If you keep fighting, you'll get in the way of all of our matters. Fellow Ming Dong, I do hope that you can stop here. If you want to fight, go fight somewhere else. Don't get in our way. At the same time, quite a few powerful and confident supreme god kings spoke out to stop the battle. However, there were even more god kings who backed off far away, and they all arrived at the passages to higher or lower floors. These people were ready to leave immediately as soon as they began fighting. Let's go and stay out of this for now. Ming Dong comes from the heavenly palace of Bisheng. We can't offend him over a small matter like this. A few supreme god kings who knew about Ming Dong's origins backed off far away as quickly as possible with their guards and followers. Ming Dong and Jian were both brandishing their weapons. They could begin fighting at any time. Ming Dong, please calm down, Shangguan Mu'er said at this moment. She looked at Ming Dong from afar, and her lips moved gently. A voice that only Ming Dong could hear rang out. Ming Dong's body shuddered violently. He could not help but begin trembling. He arrived before Shangguan Mu'er in a flash and said emotionally, Really? How do you know? I can sense it. Even though it's only a vague sense, it can't be wrong. Don't forget that he still has that tower on him. Shangguan Mu'er did not speak aloud. Instead, she communicated with Ming Dong secretly, so she did not fear others eavesdropping. Don't disclose this right now. I heard that there's a very important girl by Jian Chen's side. So many supreme god kings have gathered here purposefully for that girl. Disclosing this matter sooner than needed will be detrimental to Jian Chen. Fantastic. That is fantastic. Haha, why didn't I think of that tower? If I've guessed correctly, that should be my master's supreme treasure. In the blink of an eye, the gloom that weighed on Ming Dong's heart completely cleared up. He was jubilant as a great mood overcame him instantly. There was no longer any surprising resentment around him. At that moment, Ming Dong seemed completely different from before. "Brother, since you're still here, I'll wait for you to come out. I'll leave the rest of the enemies to you." Ming Dong sat down and ingested several god-tier pills one after another as he calmed down to meditate. He had paid a great price to use Fate Sight earlier, and then he went through several intense battles as well. Not only was he greatly exhausted, but he had even damaged his vitality. Fortunately, he had large amounts of various god-tier pills on him as the ninth majesty of the heavenly palace of Bisheng. Making a full recovery was nothing difficult. To another side, Jian, Bai, Gongzheng, and Sanging all sighed in relief when they saw Ming Dong finally stop. In the surroundings, all the god kings who had backed off far away returned after seeing Ming Dong finally stop. Very soon, they began to carry out their plans to search for the girl in the lava. Before long, the 8th floor had recovered its peace. However, everyone knew that this was only on the surface, as the volcanoes on the floor were very unstable. Just the slightest stimulant would be enough to make them erupt. With so many god kings gathered here, they still managed to affect the floor even when they concealed their presences. The balance there could be broken at any time. Shangguan Mu'er sat in the air by herself. She did not hurry off to the 12th floor. Instead, she stared at the lava below eagerly, waiting for Chen to come out. "Shangguan Mu'er, I never thought you would have broken through to God King in such a short amount of time. It really has surprised me." However, a gentle voice rang out from behind Shangguan Mu'er at this moment. An alluring beauty in a green dress stood beside Shangguan Mu'er. Currently, she looked at her with a smile. Shangguan Mu'er was alarmed. She had always been on guard, yet she had still failed to sense the woman at all when she approached her. "You are?" Shangguan Mu'er looked at the unfamiliar woman with surprise and doubt. She had never seen this woman before, but she did feel a familiar presence from her. Chapter 21:11, Under Attack. It has only been a few centuries. "Have you forgotten about me?" The woman continued to smile warmly, making her seem as pretty as the blooming of 100 flowers. It was as if the erupting volcanoes in the surroundings had settled down slightly from her smile. Very soon, a thought flashed through Shangguan Mu'er's mind as she sensed the familiar presence from the woman. She was surprised as she said, "You're that elven god tree from the elves?" Back on the Tianyuan continent, Shangguan Mu'er was familiar with the elven god tree. She gained an extremely deep impression of it. This was because if it were not for the elven god tree, it would have been impossible for their world to survive against the crisis of the world. "I'm not a tree. When I used my remaining life force to condense into a tree of life in the lower world, I had no choice either," the woman smiled gently. Shangguan Mu'er had already learnt some of the matters about Adriana from Chen. After receiving confirmation, she immediately stood up and bowed towards Adriana, greeting her as a senior. "You don't need to call me senior. Although I'm much older than you, status isn't determined by age in the saints' world. We're both god kings right now, and with your talent, you'll surpass me before too long. As a result, our statuses are equal. Of course, if you hold me in high regard, you can call me elder sister. We can refer to each other as sisters," said Adriana. On the surface, she seemed indifferent and calm, but she was very perturbed on the inside. All of this was only caused by how Shangguan Mu'er cultivated much faster than she had ever considered. In the past, when she left the Tianyuan continent with the war god of the god clan, Ta, Shangguan Mu'er was only at the origin realm. Only so long had passed since then, and she had already become a god king. It was not just Shangguan Mu'er. Even Ming Dong nearby and Chen, who everyone mentioned, had become great god kings in such a short amount of time. They progressed so rapidly that it was truly breathtaking. Even someone who had seen many supreme prodigies like Adriana would still feel shocked. It's quite the coincidence now that I mention it. I've come this time because of the esteemed war god's orders. I've come to find Chen. The trip to the Neptunian Divine Palace only should have been an opportunity to set up a network as preparation for finding Chen, but I never thought I'd hear about him right after I entered the Neptunian Divine Palace. I never thought he'd come here as well. It looks like these matters really are up to luck, Adriana sighed gently and emotionally. The war god? Shangguan Moor murmured softly. The war god is Tai Ta. He has become the supreme king of our god clan now. Adriana could not help but show respect as soon as the war god was mentioned. Their god clan was rather special. Although they too followed the law of the jungle, where only the strong survived, the war god was an exception. The war god of the god clan, also known as warring gods, were born from the world. Only one of them would appear with each generation, where two would never appear at the same time. The next generation would only be born once the previous generation died. But without any exception, regardless of cultivation, as soon as the war god of a generation returned to the god clan, they would become an absolute existence. Even the hall elders who basically reigned over the god clan had to listen to the war god's orders. Everyone here is saying Chen has died, but I know that it's impossible for him to die here. Adriana looked at the lava below as she smiled mysteriously. Chen has that tower with him. All he needs to do is hide in there, and the lava here won't be able to harm him at all. I think he's probably having the time of his life down there right now, Adriana said softly. Aside from Shangguan Moor, no one else could hear what she was saying. Elder sister, do you know about the origins of that tower? Shangguan Moor stared at Adriana. She already knew that Chen's tower was extremely tough and of great quality. However, Chen had never explained the exact details of the tower to anyone so far. Adriana nodded. I still wasn't certain about the tower back on the Tianyuan continent. After arriving in the Saints' world, I looked through many records before I became certain. When she reached there, Adriana suddenly became stern. She said secretly, the tower ties into many significant matters. The fewer people that know, the better it is. Otherwise, not only will Chen be hunted down, but even the people who have seen the tower before will be doomed. Don't pry into it too much. I know you won't mention it to anyone else, but if it raises the attention of those peak experts in the Saints' world, they have many methods to control the thoughts and wills of other people. They can learn everything they want to know effortlessly. But fortunately, basically all the people who can recognize the tower with a single glance are primordial realm experts. No one should have managed to recognize the tower when he exposed it in the Neptunian Divine Palace earlier. Sister Moor, let's go. Who knows when Chen will come out? There are fortuitous encounters littered across the Neptunian Divine Palace. I'll take you around and have a look and see whether we can increase your strength some more. As soon as Chen appears, there will be bloodshed. Even with Ming Dong here, he won't necessarily be able to hold them off. If you want to help him, you need to be powerful enough, or you'll just drag him down. Shangguan Moor and Adriana left the 8th floor, while Ming Dong and his 5 divine generals remained there, silently waiting for Chen to appear. As for the many god kings gathered on the floor, they had already formed their own groups to unleash the full power of god artifacts through pouring their strength together. They began to search for Xiao Man in the lava. Currently, at the bottom of the lava that was hot enough to melt even god artifacts, Chen was collecting fire divine crystals happily without any thoughts of exhaustion. Every time he cast out his net, he could envelop enough fire divine crystals to form a small hill. All the fire divine crystals in quite a large region had vanished. Chen moved the tower as he collected the fire divine crystals, having left his original position long ago. Along the way, the amount of fire divine crystals stacked up in the Inata Tower reached an amount that even he did not know. He only knew that it had probably reached into the 100 millions. However, Chen still was not satisfied. He knew that 100 million fire divine crystals were not a lot of 5-color divine crystals, so he did not stop his collection. But at this moment, just when Chen was about to drag a huge pile of fire divine crystals back with him, the lava and the surroundings suddenly pulsed violently. He felt a strong threat suddenly appear and approach him at an unbelievably rapid pace. Chen's face changed. The threat was so great that it was suffocating. It was terrifying, where his blood seemed to freeze up at that moment. Chen's face changed several times. Without any hesitation, he immediately abandoned the fire divine crystals he had just collected, returning to the Inata Tower as quickly as he could. Boom! Just when Chen had vanished, a great rumble rang out. The Inata Tower was struck by a powerful attack, where even Chen, who hid inside it, could clearly sense a gentle tremble from the tower through his connection with it. Chen was shocked. He had already refined the Inata Tower to the 5th floor now. It was even more powerful than in the past. Let alone supreme god kings with god artifacts, but he was confident that it could even endure attacks from some infinite primes without shaking at all. However, the Inata Tower shook gently right now, so just how powerful was the attack that the tower had just received? Chapter 21:12. The gigantic lizard in the lava. Chen stood at the entrance on the 1st floor of the Inata Tower. He looked outside through the damaged door. His face changed rapidly as he became filled with surprise and doubt. Until that moment, he struggled to believe that he had been attacked, and the fact that the attack was so powerful that it had completely surpassed the boundary of God Kings. It was forbidden for primordial realm experts to enter the Neptunian Divine Palace. This rule had never been broken throughout the millions of years the Neptunian Divine Palace had opened. Moreover, this was the bottom of the lava. It was so hot here that even some weaker god artifacts would melt. Even some primordial realm experts would not be able to dive so deep. Chen, what's happening? Kaya appeared before Chen silently as she stared outside sternly. Chen shook his head without saying anything. He was extremely stern. He had no idea what was attacking them. He was not even certain whether it was some life form attacking them, or that he had accidentally run into some kind of formation, causing it to counterattack. Boom! 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 However, at this moment, the terrifying attack started once again. It came from right in front of them. Every strike was devastating, enough to cause the lava in the surroundings to churn violently. It struck the damaged Inata Tower heavily. The attacks were just too intense and too powerful. Even when Chen hid within the Inata Tower, he could clearly sense just how shocking the attacks outside were. The Inata Tower shook heavily. Every single attack from the outside could shake the tower, so after enduring this terrifying, seemingly unending barrage of attacks, even the tower began to shake violently. Before long, the entire tower lost its balance and began to tip over slightly, falling towards the ground. Chen could clearly sense everything happening to the tower from the inside. He did not try to stabilize the tower. Instead, he allowed it to fall. His heart had become heavy, while his expression was very ugly. Currently, he was certain that he did not run into some kind of formation and was instead being attacked by an unknown enemy. What he could not understand was how his opponent was able to remain within the Neptunian Divine Palace despite their strength. Plunk! With a heavy rumble, the falling Inata Tower struck the ground with unbelievable weight. Immediately, the entire ground shook violently, like a super earthquake was happening. Huge cracks spread out in all directions like a web while all the lava churned violently. Currently, there were balls of light near the surface of the lava that carefully dove into the depths at an extremely gradual pace. Every single ball of light represented a defensive god artifact. There were several god kings within each one, pouring their strength together to push the defensive power of the god artifact to the limit to fend off the lava. Indeed, the bottom of the lava could melt god artifacts, but this process required quite a long time. Under the combined efforts of the god kings, as long as they did not venture to the very bottom, they could indeed last in the lava for a while but not too long. But at this moment, the lava in the surroundings suddenly began to shake violently. Not only did the pressure on the god kings who had dove in with their god artifacts drastically increase, but flames that only existed at the bottom of the lava rushed up. Surrounded by the flames, many balls of light shattered in under 10 seconds, exposing the god kings inside to the lava. Immediately, miserable cries rang out in the lava. All the god kings who had dove into the lava did not dare to remain there any longer. Like they were fleeing for their lives, they rushed to the surface as quickly as they could. Very soon, all the God Kings emerged from the lava. They hovered high in the air as they stared at the churning seas of lava with lingering fear. In that short moment, many of them had suffered wounds of varying degrees. Some of them had been burnt to a point where they bore no resemblance to before. Flames surged on them while the supreme quality saint artifacts on them had already been reduced to a puddle. What's happening down there? Why has the lava become so violent all of a sudden? These flames are just too terrifying. They should only exist at the very bottom of the lava, so why have they surged up just then? Many supreme God Kings hovered in the air as they stared at the lava below. They were in fear. If it were not for the fact that they had fled quickly, even supreme God Kings would not have been able to survive. They would have been burnt to a crisp. However, many God Kings were traumatized by this, so no one dared to go down into the lava again for the time being. The terrifying attack stopped beneath the lava. Chen hid in the Inata Tower and sensed the outside through his connection with the tower. After confirming that the attacks would not continue, he slowly made the Inata Tower float before carefully advancing forwards. After advancing several kilometers, Chen suddenly became startled. Immediately, he stopped the Inata Tower, and after sensing the outside seriously, he gritted his teeth and left the tower once again, appearing outside. But this time, Chen appeared behind the Inata Tower. That way, even if they were attacked again, he would have enough time to make his way back in with the indestructible tower before him to block the attacks. However, as soon as Chen left the Inata Tower, his heart jumped and his eyes narrowed instantly. Up ahead, he saw a huge head. Currently, the head was almost pressed against the Inata Tower. A pair of eyes that were 3 meters wide stared at the tower in interest. It's a gigantic lizard. Chen's heart shuddered. He recognized what it was with a single glance. It was actually a huge lizard that could survive in the depths of the lava. However, at this moment, the gigantic lizard discovered Chen as well. Its huge eyes immediately locked onto him. Even though Chen was in the lava, he felt his body turn cold from the lizard's gaze as if his entire body had seized up. His blood felt like it had frozen as a sense of danger enough to suffocate him suddenly descended. Chen had been ready to return to the Inata Tower at any time, so without any hesitation, he returned to the tower with a flash. Boom! As soon as he returned to the tower, a heavy sound rang out from the structure. Clearly, the lizard had launched a ferocious attack. Chen breathed heavily in the Inata Tower. He looked outside, and he was extremely stern. This outcome had completely topped his preconceived ideas of the Neptunian Divine Palace. He had never thought that there would be such a terrifying lizard at the bottom of the lava, where no one had discovered it after so many years. He was certain that if the news of the lizard broke out in the Neptunian Divine Palace, it would lead to a huge uproar. Chen, what's the situation outside? Kaya asked. Chen immediately told Kaya everything he knew. As expected, Kaya became stern after learning that there was an abnormally powerful lizard outside. It'll be very difficult for you to collect fire divine crystals with that lizard outside, Kaya frowned. Chapter 21:13, A Second Law, 1. The space here is so vast. Since there's a gigantic lizard here, I'll go somewhere else, said Chen before immediately backing off with the Inata Tower. He moved far away from the region to avoid the lizard. The damaged Inata Tower was like a ghost, moving through the bottom of the lava silently. Under Chen's control, they only stopped after traveling millions of kilometers, seemingly reaching the other end of the 8th floor. It should be safe here, Chen murmured to himself. He quietly sensed the situation outside through his connection with the Inata Tower before leaving with a flash. Be careful, just in case the lizard has followed us here, Kaya said from behind. She seemed rather worried and concerned. However, this time, Chen returned to the tower with a sunken face in just a few seconds. He said grimly, the lizard is still outside. It followed us. The resistance is just too great here, so I can't sense its existence at all from the tower. Chen was in a horrible mood. The gigantic lizard was hostile, where it would attack him as soon as it saw him. Moreover, all of its attacks were devastating. It was so powerful that even ordinary infinite primes could probably be slain from a single strike, let alone god kings. He could not collect any more fire divine crystals now. He could see how the ground outside was littered with fire divine crystals, but he just happened to be unable to collect them. It would be a painful torture to anyone in his position. Chen did not give in. He continued to move through the lava, switching to many different places. However, the part that made him furious was that no matter where he went, the lizard would follow him, or more accurately, it would follow the tower. It would move with the tower and strike the tower a few times from time to time, causing it to shake. It looks like I can't go outside for now with that gigantic lizard around. Whatever, since I can't go outside, I'll cultivate here for a while, Chen sighed inside. After handing some matters over to Kaya, he visited Ziyun and Xiao Man before going to the 9th floor of the Inata Tower by himself. He entered secluded cultivation. His comprehension of the laws of the sword had already reached the major achievement of sword spirit. He could condense a third strand of profound sword chi now. He had been busy with collecting fire divine crystals before, and he treated that with more importance than anything else. As a result, he naturally did not have the time to condense the third strand back then. Now that a terrifying lizard was waiting outside, he was trapped in the Inata Tower, so he could only spend the time cultivating. Chen had already condensed the profound sword chi twice in the past, so he was already familiar with the process. Very soon, he began to condense it. As Chen spent his time in seclusion, Kaya, Ziyun, and Xiao Man did not sit around idly. They also cultivated. Xiao Man, in particular, worked even harder on cultivation after what happened in the Neptunian Divine Palace. Her talent was not horrible, but due to the fact that she was too young and had not cultivated for a long time, she was only at the mortal realm. After making up her mind to cultivate arduously, combined with Ziyun's tremendous resources, Xiao Man's rate of improvement could be described as tremendous. Very soon, she broke through to sainthood. Ziyun, on the other hand, had recently received a chaotic prime's legacy. Now that she had received some rare piece, she devoted herself to absorbing the legacy. In the sky above the lava, the god kings gathered there did not leave. Most of the god kings had come in later and had come for the recognition of the Neptunian Divine Palace's artifact spirit. Now that they were certain that Xiao Man was crucial to the process, they naturally would not give up their search for her. However, the lava was not peaceful these days. It would experience violent tremors from time to time, drawing up the flames from the very bottom, which prevented them from diving in so easily. All of them were waiting for a moment where the lava completely calmed down. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, 3 years had passed. On this day, the entire 9th floor of the Inata Tower suddenly became extremely bright as if a sun hung high in the sky, shining brightly and illuminating the entire world. An extremely powerful sword intent radiated from the center of the 12th floor. Jian currently sat below a huge stone tablet as a finger-sized sword chi hovered above his head. It seemed to possess its own consciousness as it revolved around Jian from time to time. It was the source of the chilling sword intent. At this moment, there was a flash, and the strand of sword chi suddenly vanished. In just a split second, it had entered Jian's soul and settled down with the 2 other strands of sword chi that seemed exactly the same. Jian slowly opened his eyes as he showed some joy. After 3 years of seclusion, he had successfully condensed the 3rd strand of profound sword chi. He could clearly sense that in the instance he condensed the 3rd strand, the 2 strands from before seemed to increase in power slightly. Afterwards, he looked at the huge stone tablet. The stone tablet held all the control to the Inata Tower. Only by refining it completely could he possess complete control over the tower. I wonder if I can refine the 6th floor with my current strength. Jian stared at the stone tablet as he pondered to himself. After some silence, he pressed his hands against the stone tablet firmly and tried to refine the 6th floor. However, he gave up very soon. The 6th floor was countless times more difficult to refine than the 5th floor. After the attempt, he discovered that even if his cultivation advanced to the next stage, he would not necessarily be able to refine the 6th floor. It looks like I can only attempt it after my cultivation has reached a level on par with infinite primes, Chen sighed gently. With a thought, he vanished from the 9th floor, and when he reappeared, he was on the 1st floor again. He appeared beside Kaya silently. He did not go out to check on the lizard. During those 3 years, although he had been focusing on refining the strand of profound sword chi, his senses attached to the Anata tower had not weakened at all. He could clearly sense that the tower would shake a few times every once in a while. Clearly, the lizard did not leave. Perhaps it had become interested in the tower, as it would hit the structure from time to time. However, each time it did that, its power was extremely terrifying. Not only did it shake up the Anata tower, but it stirred up the entire sea of lava as well, preventing the 8th floor of the Neptunian Divine Palace from recovering its peace. Chapter 21:14, A Second Law, 2. Whenever the Neptunian Divine Palace opened, it would only remain open for 10 years. Almost half of the 10 years had passed by now. Chen also knew that it would probably be very difficult for him to continue his collection of fire divine crystals in the future. He turned his head slightly and gazed into the distance. He immediately calmed down slightly when he saw the mountainous pile of fire divine crystals. He knew that there would not be too many 5-color divine crystals once he exchanged the fire divine crystals, but at the very least, it would be enough for him to take the teleportation formation across planes a few times. You've emerged. Kaya slowly opened her eyes. She looked at Chen beside her and asked, "Is there anything you're looking for?" Chen nodded slightly and laughed dryly in a rather unnatural manner. "The lizard still hasn't left, so I can't go out. I need to stay in here." "Oh right, Kaya, I've seen your usage of laws. It seems like you have quite the knowledge about it. At the same time, the laws of fire and the laws of destruction possess extraordinary power in your hands. It completely exceeds your current cultivation. May I ask how you achieved it?" Chen had always been curious about Kaya's usage of laws. If his grasp and usage of the laws of the sword could reach the same level as Kaya's laws of fire and destruction, his battle prowess would rise to a new level. Although he had spent several years under the lava now, and he was not completely certain about the situation within the Neptunian Divine Palace, it was not difficult for him to guess what had happened. He knew that since the 8 Supreme God Kings and the various other observing God Kings had learned about Xiao Man, it would not be kept a secret. Probably everyone knew about Xiao Man's secret already. Xiao Man was with him right now. Unless he abandoned Xiao Man, he would come into conflict with many Supreme God Kings sooner or later once he left this place. He would struggle to handle that, as he had just broken through to the 12th layer of the chaotic body. As a result, he urgently needed to increase his strength. "I can't really explain how I do it in detail. It's just based off a feeling," Kaya said in thought. Then she raised her right hand slowly and said, "Chen, I'll slow down my condensation of laws and show you." With that, Kaya began to condense the power of the laws of destruction slowly. This time, she condensed the laws at an extremely gradual pace, allowing people to clearly sense the omnipresent power of laws gather towards her fingers from the surroundings, slowly condensing into a ball of power filled with a sense of destruction. Chen's eyes narrowed as he discovered that Kaya's process was not much different from other God Kings. There was nothing special about it. However, when the laws of destruction condensed in her hand, it was clearly much purer than when other God Kings condensed them. This feeling made it seem like Kaya's cultivation realm was not an early God King but late God King. This was because the laws of destruction she had just condensed was definitely as powerful as the laws of destruction a late God King condensed. Laws are also a form of power. There's also tricks to using this power, Kaya said softly. As she spoke, the laws of destruction condensed at her fingertips silently changed in shape. It was no longer pure power, gradually turning into an inscription. As soon as the inscription appeared, it radiated with a ripple of energy that gave even Chen chills. He could sense a powerful threat from the inscription as if it was no weaker than the Supreme God Kings he fought before. I'll show it to you a few more times. I don't know how I should pass this method on to you correctly, so this is all I can do right now. Kaya dispersed the laws of destruction in her hand and began to condense them again, following the same steps. Not only was Jian the person Kaya trusted the most, but he was also her best friend, and the person she was most familiar with. As a result, she did not hold back for Jian at all, providing him with everything she knew. She repeated it time and time again without any consideration for exhaustion. Jian slowly closed his eyes and cleared his mind. He sensed every step and every detail as Kaya condensed the laws of destruction. He wanted to understand the secrets within so that he could increase his personal grasp over the laws of the sword. Gradually, Jian entered a selfless mental state. He only felt like he was submerged in a sea filled with the laws of destruction, wrapping around him tightly. In the sea of laws of destruction, he felt no sense of threat or unease at all. Instead, he felt a warm feeling, like an infant in their mother's embrace. At the same time, he felt like his entire body was fusing into it, as if his body wanted to become a part of the sea, to become a drop of water in the sea. At the same time, the faint power of the laws of destruction silently condensed around Jian, revolving around him. Kaya, who sat before Jian, stared at him in shock. She mumbled, he is actually comprehending the laws of destruction. After who knew how long, Jian finally emerged from that wondrous state. As soon as he roused, he sensed his personal changes. Not only could he clearly sense the power of the laws of the sword that was present everywhere, but he could even sense the power of the laws of destruction as well. Jian was startled. Immediately, he tried to condense the power of the laws of destruction, and just as expected, the laws of destruction condensed rapidly with just a thought from him. I've grasped the laws of destruction. Disbelief filled Jian's face. Originally, he wanted to understand the secrets of her usage of laws through Kaya, but he had never thought he would successfully comprehend the laws of destruction instead. Kaya, how long have I taken? Jian asked nervously. He had been submerged within that wondrous state, having forgotten about himself and everything else. He completely lost track of time, making him afraid that he had spent far too much time comprehending the laws of destruction. Half a year. Only half a year? Thank God, Jian sighed in relief and finally stopped worrying. Master, the way of the sword is your main focus. You must put all your efforts into the way of the sword. Only then can you reach the peak in the shortest amount of time possible. The voices of the sword spirits rang out in Jian's head. Jian's comprehension of the laws of destruction made the two of them worry, as they were afraid that it would slow down Jian's progress with the way of the sword. Ziying and Qing Suan knew that Jian would comprehend more laws in the future, but they wanted to see him become an expert that could dominate an entire region before comprehending more laws. This was because by then, there would not be a lot of people who could threaten Jian anymore. He would be able to comprehend more laws without any worry, unlike right now where he faced danger at all times. Just the slightest carelessness could end up claiming his life. Chapter 21:15, Rapid Progress. Ziying, Qing Sua, don't worry. I won't let you down, Jian communicated with the sword spirits. Even though it was purely an accident that he comprehended the laws of destruction, Jian did not regret it. This was because with two laws, his battle prowess would definitely be greater than when he grasped one law. The only problem was that he had just begun to comprehend the laws of destruction, so his usage and comprehension of the laws of destruction remained at a rudimentary level. However, Jian believed that before too long, he would be able to raise his comprehension of the laws of destruction to God King. By then, his battle prowess would rise to a whole new level without any doubt when he used the laws of the sword and destruction together with his chaotic force. My current comprehension of the laws of destruction are approaching mid-God King. Jian, you've just comprehended the laws of destruction, so your usage remains at a rudimentary level. I'll engrave my comprehension and assist you in increasing your comprehension, said Kaya. She found a tough stone tablet somewhere and closed her eyes slowly. Immediately, a powerful presence radiated from her body. Her long hair fluttered without any breeze as the power of the laws of destruction silently condensed, gathering around Kaya. Kaya's process of comprehending the laws of destruction from the very start to her current early God King level flashed through her mind. In the end, it condensed on her finger as an imprint that contained the endless mysteries of the laws. As soon as the imprint was created, the laws of destruction around Kaya were immediately disturbed. It began to pulse violently, becoming extremely unstable. At this moment, Kaya's gaze suddenly became extremely sharp. As she called out, the imprint on her finger shot off as a streak of black light, striking the stone tablet. There was no deafening boom, nor was there any terrifying destruction. Kaya's seemingly astounding strike was underwhelming in the end. It only left behind an extremely clear and profound imprint on the stone tablet. Kaya's body tottered as she staggered. She almost fell down, and her face paled slightly. She seemed frail. Clearly, what she just did had a tremendous impact on her. Kaya, why did you do this? Immediately, Chen arrived before Kaya. His face was filled with concern. He directly took out a few recovery pills and fed them to Kaya. Naturally, he knew what Kaya had done. He had done the same thing back at the Tianyuan clan before, leaving behind a slash that contained the mysteries of the laws of the sword for Xiao. This was called passing on laws. It engraved a person's comprehension of laws in the clearest and simplest fashion for other people to comprehend. Although this was the easiest way for someone to leave behind the mysteries of laws they had comprehended, not only would it exhaust the person significantly, but there would also be an extremely great risk. Their souls could become injured from the slightest carelessness. Moreover, not everyone could benefit from an imprint like this. It only presented the laws of the world in the clearest and most direct fashion. Whether someone could grasp it would depend on their personal affinity for comprehension. As a result, even some masters in the saints' world would not leave behind an imprint like this so easily. Even without considering whether it would be able to achieve its purpose, just the risk alone was enough to make many experts shy away from it. I can't describe the trick to using laws to you, nor can I find a way to pass it on to you properly. You've comprehended the laws of destruction, so all I can do for now is leave behind my comprehension of the laws of destruction, Kaya said tiresomely. With that, she immediately sat down and began to rest. Chen looked at the pale-faced Kaya with mixed feelings. He sighed gently before devoting all his attention to the imprint Kaya had left behind. He poured his mind into it to comprehend the mysteries of laws in there. Chen was completely submerged in it very quickly. He was talented already, and now that he had the assistance of this imprint, his comprehension of the laws of destruction increased extremely rapidly. He basically made progress at all times. Early deity. Late deity. Early god. Mid-god. Chen's comprehension of the laws of destruction skyrocketed. He progressed so quickly that it was directly breathtaking. Master's affinity for comprehension is even greater than we imagined it to be, of course. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for Master to comprehend the way of the sword so soon back on the Tianyuan continent. Although he used comprehension T back then, his cultivation level was truly just too low. He was nowhere close to the basic standards for comprehending the way of the sword. In my opinion, it would have been impossible for someone no matter how talented to comprehend the way of the sword even with the assistance of comprehension T at Master's cultivation level in the past, yet Master managed it. The sword spirit secretly sighed in amazement. Even though they knew it was all because of the imprint, they were still able to witness Chen's talent indirectly. At the same time, over 1,000 god kings gathered on the 12th floor of the Neptunian divine palace peacefully around 3 huge statues. Everyone sat there with their eyes closed as they comprehended the 3 statues with their mind. In an inconspicuous corner within the ground, the god kings of the Yun family gathered there as well. However, compared to the past, their numbers had fallen once again. Only 5 remained. Exioner, you're blessed, where you obtained a spiritual root of heavenly ways soon after you came to the Neptunian divine palace. It won't be a problem for you to become a chaotic prime. You have to take advantage of this opportunity now and properly comprehend these statues. Let's see whether you can gain the recognition of one of the statues. One of the legacies has been taken away out of the 4 statues. You only need to gain the recognition of one of the 3 remaining statues, and not only will you be able to break free from the Sky Empire, but you might even be able to avenge Jian Chen. Yun Lianqing sat beside Yun Xian and said to her secretly. Even though he knew that obtaining the legacies here was basically something that could only happen in fairy tales, he still held some anticipation. Yun Xian opened her eyes and glanced at the 5th prince, Mr. Shu, and the others nearby. She nodded slightly. The 5th prince and Mr. Shu were communicating through secret techniques as well. Mr. Shu, I'll stay here for now and leave with the group when the Neptunian Divine Palace closes. There are a few extremely powerful Supreme God Kings on the 12th floor, so even if Ming Dong comes here, he won't be able to do anything. You're worrying too much, 5th prince. Ming Dong probably still doesn't know I attacked Jian Chen. After all, the rumors only detailed 8 Supreme God Kings working against Jian Chen. I was not included in there. It looks like I've been ignored by many people because I'm not a Supreme God King, Mr. Shu replied. So what if Ming Dong learns about it? You can't forget that we found a life star core in the Neptunian Divine Palace. Every single life star core comes from the center of a planet brimming with life. It's extremely precious, and it contains a terrifying life force. It's a treasure that can only be found through luck to those who cultivate the way of life, the 5th prince said confidently. 5th prince, are you thinking of? Mr. Shu was startled, and he glanced into the distance. Mr. Shu was looking at an empty region where basically no one resided. Only 2 otherworldly women sat there. It seemed like the huge, empty space had become their special territory. One of the women wore a purple dress. A veil obscured her face as she placed a simple zither on her knees. She did not try to comprehend the statue or attempt to gain the legacy's recognition. Instead, she placed all her attention on the zither. The other woman wore a green dress. She was alluring and very pretty. Mr. Shu did not look at the veiled woman in purple. Instead, he looked at the woman in a green dress as a smear of dread and deep angst appeared on his face. The woman in green kept her presence concealed, so she seemed ordinary, but her strength was deeply remembered by all the God Kings on the floor. This was because as soon as this woman had come to the floor, she clashed with a woman in silver-white armor. Although it was just a single clash, the devastating power made all the God Kings present suspect that they were primordial realm experts fighting instead. Moreover, this woman in green comprehended the laws of life. However, the single clash made all the God Kings on the 12th floor clearly understand that the 2 women had reached a horrifying level of strength. As a matter of fact, without any exaggeration, all the other Supreme God Kings gathered on the floor became obedient due to their presences. They did not dare to set down their own rules there anymore. That's right. If it really reaches that point, we'll offer her the Life Star Core. Although the Life Star Core is precious, it only has unimaginable uses to experts who cultivate the laws of life. There just happens to be one of them here, so asking this expert to stop Ming Dong for us in exchange for a Life Star Core shouldn't be too difficult. Ming Dong's background may be great, where he has killed several Supreme God Kings without any fear of revenge from the organizations behind them, but it's not like we're truly getting her to engage in a brawl to the death by asking the Supreme Goading who has comprehended the laws of life to stop Ming Dong. I think she'll agree, the 5th prince said to Mr. Shu secretly as he seemed extremely confident. Mr. Shu also found the 5th prince's words to be very reasonable, so he immediately relaxed. He said, with that being the case, we have no need to worry whether Ming Dong will find out about us or not. It's indeed very difficult for us to fend off Ming Dong in the Neptunian Divine Palace, but once we leave, there will be primordial realm experts from our Sky Empire there to receive us. Leaving will be a piece of cake. I'm just very curious about the identities of the woman in green and the woman in white armor over there. I'm curious about which 2 of the top 10 experts on the God King's throne they are, where they're so terrifying. But even with so many people, none of them seem to be able to recognize the 2 of them. Otherwise, just their names would have been enough to determine their rankings on the God King's throne, Mr. Shu glanced past the crowd and would look at the woman in green and the woman in armor from time to time. While he felt dread, he was also filled with curiosity. In reality, they were not the only people curious about the two women. Basically, all the god kings on the floor secretly paid attention to the two of them. Clearly, their clash that time had left a permanent impression in everyone's hearts. One of them who received everyone's attention was Adriana. Currently, Adriana kept her presence completely concealed, and she sat beside Shangguan Mu'er like an ordinary person. She ignored the secret glances from the people in the surroundings. However, when she glanced past the many people from time to time and saw the person with a curvy figure in silver-white armor seated by herself, unconcealable rage and hatred would fill her eyes. Shui. Yun. Lan, Adriana muttered these three words through gritted teeth with a sunken face. Even with her broad mind, she struggled to maintain her calm when she saw the woman in the armor. She showed very deep hatred. This was because the woman was her former enemy, one of the four protectors of the ice goddess hall, Shui Yunlan. At this moment, Shangguan Mu'er looked at Adriana and asked, "Sister, does your grievance with her really run this deep?" Adriana sucked in a deep breath and said slowly, "Sister Mu'er, you don't understand Shui Yunlan, nor do you know just how many sins she has committed. Not only did she seal up an entire world and prevent anyone from moving to the saints' world, but she even took action personally to commit a massacre, destroying an entire era in that world." Adriana looked at Shangguan Mu'er and continued, "Do you know why those ancient historical records from the Tian Yuan continent, Beast God continent, Sea Realm, and Wasteland continent only extend to just over 1,000,000 years ago? And why the history before that is completely blank, with no records at all? That is because Shui Yunlan used her bloody hands to eradicate that earlier era. Countless sainthood and origin realm cultivators have died to Shui Yunlan's hands, including people from our god clan, but they were powerless. Shui Yunlan was just too powerful. I was unable to stop her, and she possessed a supreme treasure bestowed upon her by the ice goddess, one of the 7 grand exalts, allowing her to become immune to the punishment of the laws from the lower world. As soon as the past was mentioned, Adriana experienced anger that she was unable to hold in. She hated Shui Yunlan very much, causing her gaze towards Shui Yunlan to sharpen. "Adriana, there's no need for you to look at me like that. You might have gone through over 3 million years of consolidation in the lower world, making you much more powerful than in the past, where you can even make it into the top 10 on the God King's throne, but you're still not my opponent." Perhaps having sensed Adriana's hostile gaze, Shui Yunlan's cold, emotionless voice rang out from afar. She had said this through a communication technique, so apart from Adriana, no one could hear it at all, including Shangguan Mu'er. "Adriana, I have no intentions of fighting with you, so I do hope that you can restrain yourself. You should know our current difference in strength. I can ignore what you did before, but if it happens a second time, I will make you pay." Shui Yunlan's ice-cold voice rang out clearly. It was filled with disdain towards Adriana, completely looking down on her. "Shui Yunlan, you sure are confident. I really do want to try it. I want to see whether you really can speak so confidently and treat me like nothing." Adriana did not shy away and replied with a sneer. She did not fear Shui Yunlan, and that was not the reason why did not continue fighting with Shui Yunlan when she had just come to the 12th floor. Instead, it was because their intense battle would affect many unrelated people. Even Shangguan Mu'er might end up suffering from an accident. As a result, she had to stop fighting with Shui Yunlan for the sake of Shangguan Mu'er. Shui Yunlan clearly had no intentions of conflicting with Adriana, so the two of them stopped after clashing a single time. "I'm just very curious. With your current level of cultivation, you can reach the primordial realm at any time, so why have you still not broken through and have instead remained as a god king? Moreover, why have you appeared on the 12th floor of the Neptunian Divine Palace? What confuses me even more is that you're actually trying to obtain a Grand Prime's legacy here." Adriana looked at Shui Yunlan mysteriously as she smiled strangely. Then she continued, "The organization behind you is the Ice Goddess Hall. They possess one of the 7 grand exalts of the Saints' world. How can a legacy from the Neptunian Divine Palace still catch the eye of a place that possesses the Supreme Ice Goddess? Moreover, in my knowledge, all the cultivation methods of your ice goddess hall is related to the cold. Since when did cultivation methods unrelated to the cold interest you people of the ice goddess hall? Chapter 21:17, Nowhere to Return, or perhaps it's you, Shui Yunlan, who wants the wealth of a grand prime. But that doesn't make sense either. What kind of organization is your ice goddess hall? Even if you lack resources, all you need to do is show that you need it, and countless large organizations across the Saints' world will fight with one another to offer up a huge amount of wealth first. Why would you care about the belongings of the grand primes from the Neptunian divine palace? When she reached there, Adriana suddenly smiled strangely. Perhaps you haven't returned to the ice goddess hall yet with your esteemed snow goddess? If that's the case, do you need me to send a message to the ice goddess hall so that they can send someone over to receive you and the snow goddess? Adriana, don't you dare. Shui Yunlan's response was extremely intense when she heard Adriana's offer. Suddenly, she turned her head over, and her eyes became silver white. Her gaze was as sharp as a sword as she stared at Adriana firmly. She said, Adriana, if you really do that, then it won't just be as simple as a grievance between the two of us. Although Her Majesty is injured right now, she still remains, but the war god of your god clan still hasn't grown up completely. I hope you won't bring disaster to your god clan. He, the ice goddess of your ice goddess hall has been healing for several million years, and she's still completely silently now. She hasn't even appeared for something as important as the return of the snow goddess. Who knows whether she's still alive or not? On the other hand, although our great war god has yet to mature completely, that day won't be too far away. Moreover, with our god clan's current strength, we can still dominate and stand as a peak organization even without the war god. On the other hand, is there anyone else who can stand forward for your ice goddess hall apart from the ice and snow goddesses? Who else has the power to threaten our god clan and bring disaster on us? Adriana scoffed. Shui Yunlan's face hidden within her helmet had sunk long ago. She knew that Adriana was right. The ice goddess hall never had a lot of people and never accepted disciples openly like other large sections. They were not like the heavenly palace of Bisheng either, which possessed 8 majesties, so that even when the Inata Grand Prime, one of the 7 Grand Exalts, was not present, they could still hold themselves up. Indeed, the ice goddess hall had no other expert that could hold it up apart from the ice goddess and the snow goddess. The ice goddess was heavily injured, and her current condition was unknown. She had not even appeared for something as important as the return of the snow goddess, so the situation definitely was not good. As for the snow goddess, she still had not awakened her memories yet, so she did not remember the past. Recovering her strength to her peak condition would take forever without the tremendous resources of the ice goddess hall. Adriana felt satisfaction when she saw Shui Yunlan's darkening gaze. She said, Shui Yunlan, don't give me that deathly expression. Although I hate you, I'm not someone who'll ignore the bigger picture, nor am I a petty person. Even if I do resent you, I will properly defeat you through my own hard work and cultivation. I won't use some underhanded tricks against you and the snow goddess. I won't leak the news of you and the snow goddess. You better stop acting so condescending before me in the future, because in my eyes, you're just a person with nowhere to return to. There really isn't anything for you to act so proudly about. I will fight you sooner or later because of what happened on the Tianyuan continent. Shui Yunlan's eyes narrowed. She glanced at Adriana deeply before looking away. Her head drooped slightly. She stared at the ground silently with her dull eyes. What Adriana said about how she had nowhere to return to rang through her head like a curse. It shook up her mind and filled her with sorrow. Shangguan Mu'er had no idea that an argument had already happened between Adriana and Shui Yunlan. She looked at the zither of the demonic cry again and felt overjoyed. She also felt a sense of anticipation. The ancestors were right. The 12th floor of the Neptunian Divine Palace can indeed make the artifact spirit awaken sooner because there's a mysterious power in this space. The zither of the demonic cry is absorbing this power automatically. It's just that this power is extremely special so that other people are unable to sense it. Even I would not be able to sense this mysterious power if it were not for the fact that I've gained the initial recognition of the zither of the demonic cry, Shengguan Mu'er thought. She did not desire the 3 legacies here. Instead, she placed all her attention on the zither of the demonic cry, looking forward to the artifact spirit awakening sooner. Ming Dong remained seated in the air on the 8th floor. He silently recovered from the backlash of using fate sight as he waited for Chen. The 5 divine generals had all dispersed. They formed a pentagon to protect Ming Dong, paying attention to the surroundings at all times as they guarded him with fierce loyalty. Even further away, many supreme god kings gathered in small groups that were scattered across the air. They would pay attention to the lava below at all times. However, their numbers had decreased drastically compared to the years before. Many god kings had already left in search of their own fortunes in the Neptunian divine palace. Over 80% of the people who still remain belonged to the group that had entered later. All of these people were experts who ranked higher up on the god king's throne, or they had even made it into the top 100. They did not come for the legacies, but for the Neptunian divine palace itself. The lava has already been violent for so long. When is it going to settle down? There must be something happening at the bottom of the lava, or anomalies like this would not happen, you don't say. Anyone can tell there's something happening down there, but more importantly, who dares to dive in? The supreme god kings all hovered in the sky. They were all concerned and disheveled. The time when the Neptunian divine palace would close was approaching, yet they still had no leads on the little girl, which annoyed them very much. Time passed silently, and in the blink of an eye, over half a year had passed again. Now, just the amount of time Chen had spent in seclusion in the Neptunian divine palace amounted to over 4 years, even when the time he spent collecting fire divine crystals was excluded. Half of the time had already elapsed. One day, Chen suddenly opened his eyes as he had been comprehending the laws of destruction on the 1st floor of the Inata Tower. In the instant he opened his eyes, a pure, destructive presence seemed to permeate the surroundings, shining with a dark glow. At that moment, his gaze was extraordinarily terrifying. It gave people a feeling that the gaze alone could destroy everything it saw, enough to disintegrate it all to dust. However, this gaze only lasted for a split second before returning to peace again. It became plain once again. With the imprint that Kaya left behind, comprehending the laws of destruction really is extremely easy. In such a short amount of time, I've elevated my comprehension to late over God. However, it should be because I'm comprehending too quickly that the energy in Kaya's imprint is being consumed extremely rapidly as well. It's almost completely depleted now. I probably won't be able to break through to God King soon. Chen looked at the dull imprint as he sighed in amazement. An imprint to pass on laws would not exist forever. Every single imprint was supported by energy as well. If it was not comprehended, the energy would be depleted at an extremely gradual pace, but if someone comprehended it at astonishing speed, the energy would naturally be depleted at an astonishing rate as well. Chapter 21:18, Xiao Man's Origins. Chen, your comprehension of the laws of destruction has reached late over God, so your understanding of the laws will differ greatly compared to before. I'll show you how I use the laws of destructions as well as the trick to using laws, Kaya said to Chen. She felt happy for Chen seeing how he increased his comprehension of the laws of destruction to late over God in such a short amount of time. Kaya, you've exhausted yourself too much by leaving behind that imprint. You still haven't recovered completely, so don't show me anything more because I really will struggle with grasping your method, Chen persuaded for Kaya's sake. He did not wish to see her exhaust herself just for him. Although it was just condensing the laws of destruction, which basically had no effect on Kaya at all, Chen still hoped that she could return to her peak condition sooner. You weren't able to grasp it before because you didn't comprehend the laws of destruction. Now that your laws of destruction have reached late over God and is only a step away from God King, it's much more different. Don't forget that there's a big battle coming up. Since you have the chance to increase your strength right now, you can't waste it, said Kaya. Before Chen even agreed, she began to conjure the laws of destruction. Very clearly, she hoped that Chen could grasp this method and trick as well. Chen was helpless. He could not waste Kaiya's kind intentions, so he just sat down before Kaiya and concentrated on Kaiya's usage of the laws of destruction. He would close his eyes and open his mind from time to comprehend it closely. Before he had comprehended the laws of destruction, Chen only knew that Kaiya's grasp and usage of the laws of destruction were extremely great, having reached a high level of mastery already. Now that he had comprehended the laws of destruction, he gained a different understanding when Kaiya used the laws of destruction. He discovered in shock that Kaiya's understanding and knowledge of the laws of destruction were even more terrifying than he imagined it to be. It was not something that a god king should have been able to grasp. It made him shiver. In particular, when Kaiya condensed the inscription from the laws of destruction, it was even more profound. It contained the endless secrets of laws within, making Chen feel like he was watching the evolution of laws. Its complexity extended far beyond his scope of understanding. Chen, have you benefited from it? A year later, Kaiya stopped with some exhaustion. She looked at Chen eagerly. Chen shook his head and said in dejection, "Your method of control is just far too profound. I'm nowhere close to understanding it right now." Far too profound? Really? Kaiya was rather surprised. She knew just how great Chen's talent was, but in the end, even he said it was too profound. Was grasping her method of usage really that difficult? If it were so difficult, why did she grasp it effortlessly? Chen looked at Kaiya with rather mixed emotions. He knew that Kaiya was probably the reincarnation of some great expert and was gradually recovering her former powers. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for her strength to shoot off even faster than a rocket after waking up from her slumber. Her usage of laws even surpassed all experts of the same level, where even he himself paled in comparison. Although the current Kaiya was gradually recovering her powers, her memories showed no signs of returning. All she knew was everything that had happened in this life. There's not much time left in the decade the Neptunian Divine Palace is open. The lizard outside still hasn't left, so collecting fire divine crystals is not possible. Kaiya, you should properly recover first. I think we'll be leaving here soon. I'll go check on Ziyun and Xiao first. There are some matters I must understand. Chen looked at Kaiya deeply before vanishing silently. He used the power of the Anata Tower to teleport. When Chen arrived beside Ziyun and Xiao, they were not cultivating. Instead, Ziyun was explaining some matters about cultivation to Xiao seriously. The two of them immediately stood up when they saw Chen arrive. Their faces were filled with gratitude. Chen nodded at them with a smile and looked at Xiao. She had grown up some more over the years, and she was no longer the same little girl as the one on the spatial battleship. She had become a saint emperor as well and had almost broken through to the origin realm. It had to be mentioned that Chen was not even a heaven saint master when he was Xiao age. Of course, the treatment he received back then was nowhere near as special as Xiao. He came from a lower world lacking in resources, while she came from the abundant saints world and had the personal guidance of a god king. They could not be compared. "Miss Ziyun, there are some things I want to talk with you about alone," Chen said calmly before leaving with Ziyun. They left Xiao there by herself. Brother Chen wants to spend some time all alone with Sister Ziyun. Does he like Sister Ziyun? Xiao thought inside as she watched Chen and Ziyun leave. Her face lit up. Yep, it must be like that. Otherwise, why would Brother Chen help us time and time again? He must like Sister Ziyun. Moreover, Sister Ziyun is so pretty, so it makes sense for Brother Chen to like Sister Ziyun. "Miss Ziyun, I want to learn about Xiao origins." "Of course, you don't need to worry at all. I have no ill intentions in asking. You should know that what happened with Xiao has already attracted the attention of many people. I need to know the exact reason for this, and only then will I be able to come up with a better plan to deal with the situation," said Chen. Xiao was too young. She did not know her parents as well as Ziyun, so he needed to ask Ziyun in order to look into this matter. Let me tell you what I know. Afterwards, Ziyun told Jian Chen all the things she knew. Jian Chen gained a rough understanding of Xiao Man's parents from Ziyun. He learnt that Xiao Man's parents were a couple that seemed extremely old on the surface. They had lost all of their cultivation, and after passing on everything they knew to Ziyun, they passed away 1,000 years later. Before they departed, they left behind a few life-saving items of extraordinary quality and a Neptunian medallion, ordering Ziyun to take Xiao Man into the Neptunian divine palace no matter what. Jian Chen sank into his thoughts after learning about Xiao Man's parents. Now, he was basically certain that Xiao Man's parents were related to the Neptunian divine palace, or they would not have ordered Ziyun to take Xiao Man into the Neptunian divine palace no matter what. They did that because they already knew that Xiao Man would be protected by the world within the Neptunian divine palace, where no one would be able to harm her as long as she remained in there. Even if Xiao Man's parents used to be disciples of the Taoist sect of Neptunia, there's no reason for their descendant to be protected by the Neptunian divine palace because this isn't a treatment that anyone can receive unless they're direct descendants of the master of the Neptunian divine palace. If Xiao Man's parents really are direct descendants of the master of the Neptunian divine palace, the master must have sent them out to protect his bloodline and also severed their connection through blood. That would explain how they survived the calamity of the sect. After all, the samsaric powers of the samsaric immortal exalt work through bloodlines and karmic connections. If he really wants to destroy a sect, no one will be able to survive. However, although the master of the Neptunian divine palace severed their connection through blood, he still failed to preserve them. Xiao Man's parents lost their cultivation completely because they were still tainted by some of the samsaric powers that spread to them through a sliver of their bloodline, and under its influence, they were gradually reduced to mortals, Jian Chen analyzed secretly. The secrets to Xiao Man's origins gradually cleared up. Suddenly, an idea flashed through Jian Chen's head. In that instance, he understood everything. The Neptunian moon. It's the Neptunian moon. I understand now. I finally understand now. The Neptunian moon never appeared after the Taoist sect of Neptunia was destroyed. Only when Xiao Man appeared was the yin and yang in the Neptunian divine hall restored, allowing the Neptunian moon to rise up. The appearance of the moon clearly means that the artifact spirit has awakened, allowing the world within the Neptunian divine palace to operate normally. There's a sunrise and a sunset as well as the radiance of the moon. It has become a proper world. The artifact spirit, on the other hand, was awakened by Xiao Man's bloodline. What secretly protects Xiao Man is clearly the laws of the world created by the artifact spirit. It's just that the artifact spirit of the Neptunian divine palace only awakened for a split second before falling back into a slumber. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for it to remain silent. Jian Chen sucked in a deep breath. After understanding everything, he struggled to calm down. His emotions were upheaved. Now that he had realized all this, he naturally knew that the Neptunian divine palace and everything within it actually belonged to Xiao Man. Chapter 21:19. Seeing the light of day again. Ziyun's gaze was fixed on Jian Chen's face. Looking at the rapid changes to his face, she was immediately interested. She asked, Jian Chen, have you worked out something about Xiao Man? If you have, can you tell me? After all, I've watched Xiao Man grow up. I don't hope to see anything happen to her. If I've guessed correctly, Xiao Man's ancestor should be the master of the Neptunian divine palace, and it's also because of this special bloodline that she received the protection of the Neptunian divine palace, said Jian Chen. He did not hide the matter from Ziyun. What? How is that possible? Ziyun was stunned, and disbelief filled her face. Of course, that's only my personal guess. Maybe I'm wrong, and the reality of the matter is not as I have imagined, said Jian Chen. Even though he put it like that, he was basically certain that his guess was correct. Jian Chen and Ziyun's conversation ended very soon. After separating from Ziyun, he made his way to the entrance of the Enata Tower by himself. Through the damaged door, he looked at the lava outside as he sank into his thoughts. The fact that Xiao Man was the descendant of the master of the Neptunian divine palace was surprising. He had no idea how he should treat Xiao Man in the future. Was he supposed to just let Xiao Man out in the Neptunian divine palace and pay no more heed to her? Or was he supposed to assist Xiao Man in successfully becoming the master of the Neptunian divine palace? But speaking of which, his relationship with Xiao Man and Ziyun was nothing particularly deep or special. They were strangers who had accidentally met one another. He had assisted Xiao Man back on the spatial battleship because he missed Xiao Ling, and he saw Xiao Ling's figure from Xiao Man. But now, Xiao Man had already grown up. She had become a graceful lady, no longer the little girl that seemed similar to Xiao Ling naturally. Chen could not see Xiao Ling's figure from her anymore. As a result, in Chen's opinion, even if he just abandoned the two of them in the Neptunian divine palace without any concern for their lives, he would feel no guilt at all. He would not feel like he had let them down. That was because he did not owe Xiao Man or Ziyun. On the contrary, he had assisted them twice instead, so in terms of debt, it was Xiao Man and Ziyun who owed him. However, if Chen continued to help out and assist Xiao Man in becoming the master of the Neptunian divine palace, he knew exactly how many setbacks and troubles he would have to face. If they were his friends with particularly deep ties, he would do whatever he needed for them, even if he had to crawl through perilous danger. However, they were only strangers who had met through chance. Their ties were not deep at all. As a matter of fact, they could not even be considered as basic friends. Was it worth it to take this risk for them? For a time, Chen hesitated. He had no idea how to deal with Xiao Man's matter. Chen, please help us. At this moment, Ziyun and Xiao Man arrived before Chen, and they both dropped to their knees. What are you doing? Chen frowned when he saw this. With a wave of his hand, a gentle force lifted up Xiao Man and Ziyun. Chen, I know that it's very difficult for Xiao Man to regain the Neptunian divine palace, her ancestors' belongings, with just my abilities. That's because the supreme god kings outside will definitely interfere. Even if Xiao Man is protected by the Neptunian divine palace, she's not necessarily safe. Maybe someone knows an ancient secret technique that can harm her despite the protection. I won't be of any use against these people, so I plead for you to help Xiao Man, Ziyun implored Chen. Seeing Chen frown silently, Ziyun gritted her teeth as if she had made up her mind about something. She said with determination, Chen, if you can assist Xiao Man in becoming the master of the Neptunian divine palace, I will belong to you in the future. With that, Ziyun blushed slightly, but her eyes remained fixed on Chen as if she wanted to see what he was thinking. To Ziyun's disappointment, all she saw was surprise as if her condition of offering up herself did not interest Chen. It had to be mentioned that Ziyun was extremely pretty, enough to outshine the moon. Although she could not match up to Shengguan Moor, she was still a surprising beauty. Unfortunately, Chen was not a lustful person, so her charms were naturally useless. Brother Chen, if you help me become the master of the Neptunian divine palace successfully, I'll give you all the legacies and heavenly resources in here. I only want the Neptunian divine palace, my ancestors' belongings, so that it doesn't end up in the hands of other people. At this moment, Xiao Man raised her head and said bravely. Determination flooded her face. A gleam of light shone through Chen's eyes. All the legacies and heavenly resources in the Neptunian divine palace was an unimaginably tremendous amount of resources. It was indeed very enticing to him. Let's ignore the heavenly resources for now. Just the primordial realm legacies here are enough to let the Tian Yuan clan develop rapidly. A light flickered through Chen's eyes. He thought quickly, and after a while of contemplation, he said, all right. Xiao Man, remember what you said. If I help you retake your ancestors' belonging, all the legacies and heavenly resources in the Neptunian divine palace will belong to me. Xiao Man's condition was enough for Chen to take the risk. Although the Neptunian divine palace had interested Chen before, he understood that it was also an object of great desire that would lead to a lot of trouble from other people. Moreover, with the descendant of Neptunian divine palace's master here, how could anyone else claim possession of it? Seeing Jian Chen agree, Xiao Man's face immediately lit up. All right, all right. But brother Jian Chen, the legacies at the top floor should have come from my ancestors, so I can't give those 3 to you. I can give up all the other ones though. Sure. Then let's do that, Jian Chen agreed without any hesitation. The legacy of Grand Primes did not interest him because they were useless to him. As long as he could obtain the legacies from the Chaotic Primes and Infinite Primes, it would be enough for the Tian Yuan clan. In an extremely remote, inconspicuous corner of the 8th floor, a head silently poked out of the scorching lava. Due to being covered in lava and being only a single head, it was extremely well hidden in the sea of lava. It seemed like it was a part of the whole place, making it very difficult to discover. At this moment, the head suddenly opened its eyes. What kind of eyes were they? They flickered with a cold light, where its gaze was sharp like a sword. It was difficult for people to stare right at them. First, the pair of sharp eyes observed the surroundings cautiously. After confirming that no one else was in the surroundings, the head began to slowly rise out of the lava. All of this happened silently, without creating a disturbance at all. He did not even create any waves in the thick lava. He was just like a ghost. In the blink of an eye, a slender man had emerged silently. Now, he stood on the surface of the lava. Upon closer inspection, the person did not wear anything protective at all. He completely relied on his tough body to endure the terrifying heat from the lava. The terrifying lava that could make countless Supreme God Kings pale, where even many primordial realm experts would not dare to come in contact with it easily, seemed to pose no threat to him. Fortunately, there was no one around, or it definitely would have led to a huge uproar in the Neptunian Divine Palace. To no surprise, the person who had emerged from the lava was Jian Chen. With a wave of his hand, a fist-sized tower suddenly flew out of the lava. It fell into the center of his palm. He looked at the depths of the lava fearfully and sighed in relief inside. He thought, fortunately, that gigantic lizard didn't follow us up. It looks like it won't leave the bottom of the lava so easily. And that's the exact reason why no one has discovered it until now. Several years have passed in a blink. I wonder what the situation is like in the Neptunian Divine Palace now. I need to find someone to ask about it and understand the situation before doing anything else. With a slight movement, Jian Chen vanished. He had left without any traces. Chapter 2120, proceeding to the 12th floor, just as I had expected. There really are a lot of God Kings gathered on the 8th floor. Although they've all concealed their presences, I can still vaguely feel their strength. There are probably quite a few Supreme God Kings. In the distance, Jian Chen sat at the foot of a mountain, hiding behind a huge boulder. He looked far away sternly. In order to remain hidden, he did not use the senses of his soul. He just used his vision. A large group of God Kings sat high up in the air in the distance. They did not notice Jian Chen's existence. Even if Jian Chen was standing very close to them, they would have never imagined that someone would stand at the foot of a volcano here. This was because every inch of the volcanoes here was terrifyingly hot, where even Supreme God King would not be able to endure it. Jian Chen did not dare to stay for long. He left very soon. Using the many volcanoes as a cover, he silently left the 8th floor. No one noticed any traces of him, including Ming Dong. On the 9th floor of the Neptunian Divine Palace, a bare-chested, burly man in only shorts flew through the air leisurely. He seemed to hurry off mindlessly as he observed the surroundings with interest, viewing the scenery along the way. "Sir, I've been in seclusion for many years, and I've only just emerged. May I ask if anything interesting has happened in the past few years?" At this moment, the burly man in shorts with muscles that seemed to be filled with explosive power stopped an early God King. He clasped his hands after tossing out a small pile of supreme-grade divine crystals. The early God King who was stopped was originally rather displeased, but when he saw the small pile of divine crystals, his face immediately warmed up. He clasped his fist politely and told everything he knew to the big man. He spoke in great detail. He missed nothing at all, whether it was Jian Chen's death due to protecting Xiao Man from the 8 Supreme God Kings, or Ming Dong's slaughters that made him seem even more powerful than Supreme God Kings. I never thought that so many major matters would have happened in the Neptunian Divine Palace in just a few short years. Thank you for telling me. The bare-chested man directly left after learning about everything. However, he did not travel too far away. Instead, he gradually came to a halt after leaving the early God King. He turned his head towards the 8th floor as his face was filled with evident joy and excitement. I never thought Ming Dong would come to the Neptunian Divine Palace as well. Moreover, he's on par with Supreme God Kings. Ha 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 ha, no wonder the heads of the Supreme God Kings I found at the bottom of the lava below just happened to match the people who worked against me. And I had originally thought they encountered some extremely powerful enemy that beheaded them. Turns out the 2 of them were actually killed by Ming Dong. 4 of the 8 Supreme God Kings who worked against me have been killed by Ming Dong. He even chased Song Ying to the 8th floor. Ha ha ha, I never thought Ming Dong would have already become so powerful. He has even surpassed me. It looks like I need to work hard as well. The man laughed from the bottom of his heart. He clearly seemed to be at ease. The burly man was Jian Chen in disguise. Not only did he alter his appearance, but he had even changed his stature through his control of the chaotic body. Ming Dong is in the Neptunian Divine Palace right now, but it's not convenient for me to meet him at the moment, just in case I cause trouble for him. Even if he's powerful now, he won't be able to deal with these dangers. Jian Chen calmed down very soon. After some thought, he shot off with lightning speed, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Before long, Jian Chen stopped in an extremely remote region. With a single thought, the Inata Tower immediately flew out. Under his control, the tower landed on the ground gently, and a nervous and eager Xiao Man emerged. However, to Jian Chen's surprise, the protective power did not reappear when Xiao Man appeared in the Neptunian Divine Palace again. In other words, Xiao Man was no longer protected by the Neptunian Divine Palace anymore. Is it because I took Xiao Man into the Inata Tower, and the Inata Tower severed Xiao Man's connection with the Neptunian Divine Palace? Xiao Man and the Neptunian Divine Palace seem to be connected through a thread, and now that the thread has been severed, this connection has been severed as well. As a result, Xiao Man is no longer protected by the power. A gleam of light flashed through Jian Chen's eyes as he pondered. Brother Jian Chen, why hasn't that protective power appeared? Xiao Man was also perplexed. Xiao Man, try dripping some blood onto your pendant, said Jian Chen. He had already learnt many years ago that Xiao Man had awakened the artifact spirit through the presence of her bloodline, so he wanted her to try the same thing again. If the artifact spirit could awaken again, it would be much easier for Xiao Man to take back what belonged to her ancestor. Xiao Man immediately did just that. She cut her finger and allowed her blood to drip onto the pendant before her chest. Jian Chen paid close attention to the surroundings during this time. As he waited for the artifact spirit to awaken, his gaze became extremely sharp. Without a doubt, he would kill anyone who intruded on this place with lightning speed. This was because he could not afford to leak any information about Xiao Man right now. Unfortunately, he could not hide Xiao Man, as her cultivation level was just too low. No matter how she hid, God Kings would still be able to see through all of that with a single glance. Brother Jian Chen, there seems to be nothing, Xiao Man said in confusion after a few minutes. Jian Chen frowned slightly. He said in thought, the artifact spirit should still be in slumber. The reason why it hasn't awakened this time is probably because it has become greatly exhausted from waking up last time. It's no longer as sensitive to your bloodline. Xiao Man felt worried after learning that the artifact spirit could not be awakened. She was out of ideas. Brother Jian Chen, what should we do? Don't panic. No one knows where the artifact spirit is right now, but according to my understanding of artifact spirits, even if they're in slumber, they'll choose to rest in extremely important places. The 12th floor of the Neptunian Divine Palace was where the master of this place passed away, and his legacy is there as well. If I've guessed correctly, the artifact spirit should be slumbering on the 12th floor in a place where no one knows. Xiao Man, go in the tower. Give me the pendant and leave some blood for me. I'll go to the 12th floor. That is the closest to where the artifact spirit is slumbering, and I'll see whether I can awaken the artifact spirit there with the presence of your bloodline. Once the artifact spirit awakens, those supreme god kings won't be the ones in charge of the Neptunian divine palace anymore. Chapter 21-21, A Grand Prime's Legacy. Now, Xiao Man completely listened to Chen. She basically did whatever he told her to do, without any objections at all. Afterwards, Chen got Xiao Man to return to the Inata Tower. He took Xiao Man's pendant and a jade bottle with Xiao Man's blood inside with him to the 12th floor of the Neptunian Divine Palace. The entrance to the 12th floor was no longer some secret. Chen had learned about it long ago. As a result, since he hurried along wholeheartedly and was not distracted by anything, he arrived on the 12th floor very quickly. As soon as he set foot on the 12th floor, Chen saw the 4 statues that stood in the distance, seemingly connecting the ground with the sky. He immediately felt shocked. Apart from one of them that had dulled, all of them were surrounded by a hazy layer of light. Vaguely, the tremendous pressure of Grand Prime seemed to radiate out, enough to crush stars and surpass the heavens. It seemed to bear the presence of a supreme overlord of the world. Jian knew that these 4 statues were left here by the 4 ancestors of the Taoist sect of Neptunian. However, Jian did not approach the statues. Instead, he stood very far away. He did not come here for the Grand Prime's legacies but for awakening the artifact spirit. There were many god kings gathered in the surroundings of the 3 statues. Jian did not want to raise their attention. As such, he would not expose himself, so not only did he completely conceal his presence when he arrived, he did not even use the senses of his soul. Suddenly, Jian's eyes narrowed. He discovered a few familiar figures in the crowd far away. Immediately, he backed up far away without showing any intentions of doing so and also looked away. He did not dare to pay too much attention that way. It's the 5th Prince of the Sky Empire and Mr. Shu. I never thought they'd be here as well. Although I've changed my appearance and stature, it's still nowhere near perfect. I can't be certain that some of them won't recognize me through some small hints and traces. It looks like I need to remain far away from there, Jian thought quickly. Like a ghost, he borrowed the forest and geography around to cover himself as he silently moved off into the distance. A while later, Jian arrived several 100,000 kilometers away. In an extremely remote location, he took out Xiao Man's pendant and the bottle of her blood. He dripped some of the blood onto the pendant without any hesitation. As soon as the blood came in contact with the jade pendant, it was absorbed silently. All of it vanished into the jade pendant, and afterwards, a mysterious presence that even Jian could not sense drifted out. It permeated the surroundings. After doing all that, Jian waited patiently. However, he waited for a very long time, yet the artifact spirit still did not awaken. At the same time, a great net condensed entirely out of energy expanded over an unknown space within the Neptunian Divine Palace, enveloping the entire place. It seemed like a prison, trapping whatever was in there. The energy net seemed to be alive. It changed at all times, gradually shrinking towards the center. It became smaller and smaller. I'm the master here. I'm the existence who determines everything here. I have infinite power in this divine palace. You can't trap me, nor can you assimilate with me and replace me. At this moment, a furious mental pulse roared out, booming through the interior of the net. There was an extremely ancient consciousness within the energy net. It resisted the shrinking net as hard as it could. Right now, it was like a prisoner, firmly trapped there by the net. Moreover, whenever the net shrunk slightly, a part of the ancient consciousness energy would be assimilated into the net, becoming a part of it. As the artifact spirit of the Neptunian Divine Palace, I am the absolute existence here. I set the rules here. You can't replace me. You won't succeed, the ancient consciousness resisted arduously as it bellowed out. The presence of Master's bloodline. I sense the presence of Master's bloodline again. Its master's only descendant, so the lineage can't end here. Piss off. I won't let you succeed. I will never let you succeed. The ancient consciousness became even wilder. Under its desperate struggle, the net swelled, but it still failed to rip through it. On the 12th floor, Chen traveled another 1,000,000 kilometers to a new place and dripped Xiao Man's blood onto the jade pendant once again. Strange. Why is there no response? According to what I've learned from Ziyun, the artifact spirit of the Neptunian divine palace was clearly awakened by the presence of Xiao Man's bloodline. That can't be wrong, so why is it ineffective now? Is it really like what I guessed, that the artifact spirit has yet to fully recover, and it has fallen back into a deep slumber after waking up last time? Chen was perplexed. Suddenly, Chen's eyes narrowed. He abruptly turned his head towards the distance. His gaze seemed to pierce through the distance and land on the 4 statues as he became surprised and doubtful. He could clearly sense a tremendous presence of laws sweep out in a tremendous manner over 1,000,000 kilometers away. It seemed to crush the heavens and throw the laws of the world into disorder, making them extremely unstable. A Grand Prime's legacy? A thought flashed through Chen's head. After some slight consideration, he gave up on awakening the artifact spirit for the time being. He flew towards the 4 statues. With Chen's speed, he crossed the distance very quickly. He did not get too close and hid several dozen kilometers away. He used his superior vision to observe what was going on up ahead. One of the 4 statues shone with blinding light as a resplendent streak of light shot out from its forehead, enveloping someone below. The disturbance it had caused was startling. It made everyone in the surroundings stand up and stare at the God King engulfed by the light blankly. Admiration, envy, surprise, and so on filled all of their gazes. When Chen saw this clearly from several dozen kilometers away, his face became rather ugly because the person enveloped by the light was actually the 5th prince of the Sky Empire. The 5th prince. It's actually the 5th prince, ha ha ha, fantastic. The 5th prince is blessed to receive the recognition of a Grand Prime's legacy. The few remaining guards and Mr. Shu by the 5th prince's side were all overjoyed. They struggled to hold back their excitement. In the surroundings, Yun Xian and the 5 remaining god kings of the Yun family all had mixed expressions. The 5th prince was indeed one of the people who possessed the best talent in the Sky Empire, but in the Neptunian divine palace where supreme prodigies gathered, it was not particularly astonishing. Now that he had actually gained the recognition of a Grand Prime's legacy, it was indeed very surprising to them. You're tuning in to the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.